are talking about the resilient Jenkins.
Hi, my resilient besties. How y'all doing today? Welcome. We're a family of 7 who's currently homeless, living in a motel.
Resilient Jenkins are officially homeless and living in a hotel, but this has left many people asking the question, what about CPS?
Watching my daughter go viral has been one of the hardest things I have ever had to sit back and watch.
With 246,000 followers, their life has been broadcasted all over TikTok.
Is this the bad where your babies are sleepy?
Don't come in my comments and tell me I'm crazy for wanting a baby.
Now they have to move 7 people and multiple cats, except wait, they chuck the cats. More on that in a moment.
There's the kitty. Oh, poor baby. You are so thin.
Never wanted to abandon these cats. It's freaking sad, and I don't think many people are going to understand it. We will be the family that reaches out and tries to bless as many children as we possibly can.
So allegedly, CPS just left the house of the resilient Jenkins.
This is why you shouldn't shove a camera in your kid's face every day and profit off of their living situation.
God prepared me for this.
All of this and more has only gotten worse.
Oh, you're crazy, lady.
I cannot support a woman that will have children just to get social media clout.
Having their children sleep on the floor at points.
My kids literally started tearing up.
Now, allegedly, Drew is cheating on Stephanie.
He doesn't show how he appreciates us in his own way.
Oh, don't freaking cry, lady, don't.
I do not know how she's not crashing out at this point.
I will not raise my kids with gentle parenting.
And this is why people are really tuning in.
I just want this to not be my reality anymore.
Let's talk about family channels. A beautiful concept when you think about it. Think back to a time when you were a child and your mom or dad brought home that bulky camera that weighed as much as a small dog. So eager to film your every move as a fond memory to look back on, no different than a digital scrapbook. With the rise of the digital age over the last 2 decades, the internet has seen such a concept blossom in all kinds of unique ways. From families that share their journey to amusement parks, heartwarming moments of children asking their step-parents to sign papers, officially making them their legal guardian, birthday surprises, overseas parents returning home, and so on and so forth. Despite the often posed question of, why does every aspect of your life have to be filmed to the internet? The genuine sincerity of individuals wanting to enjoy the hobby of vlogging with their loved ones is something that has been bringing harmless enjoyment to a humble amount of viewers for ages. The idea is far from new. It has merely just evolved. However, as you may already know or have seen in passing from time to time, prevailing above these casual hobbyist families are parents who see their child, a camera, and all they can envision is a successful monetary outlet. These parents typically stage encounters with their children for the most clicks and views, in order to convince the average viewer that their life is more akin to that of a bootleg version of the Kardashians than a normal family dynamic of 2 loving parents, documenting their journey of parenthood together. And so instead of a normal childhood, these kids are unknowingly enlisted as full-time actors, with their care and needs neglected for the sake of garnering more views, and by extension, further profits for mom and dad. When thinking of such a nightmare scenario, if you've been on the internet for quite some time, channels that may come to mind are that of the Ace family, led by parents Austin McBroom and Catherine Pays, who drag their family, more importantly, their kids, through internet scrutiny through their public turmoil involving scamming fans, cheating, financial struggles, and divorce. Daddy-O5, a mother and father duo who took their lust for fame so far that it resulted in the loss of custody of their 5 children back in 2017. Most recently, 8 Passengers family, whose disgusting antics have landed the matriarch of the channel, Ruby, in prison where she faces a 4 to 60 year sentence for actions I cannot describe this early into this episode, to less criminal yet nonetheless disturbing parents who pull out the camera every moment their child is in disarray, such as an instance when vlogger Jordan Cheyenne informed her son that his beloved dog, his best friend, had passed. But instead of attending to the agony that her son was experiencing at the loss of a beloved pet, she instead forced him to pose his tear-soaked face for the perfect thumbnail for her vlog. And with our notorious parents of interest today, we will be exploring a mother and stepfather duo who have found a way to reverse engineer this formula for internet fame, and have successfully created the means to turn a preventable poverty-stricken life, which in turn just feeds the machine and keeps the gears turning on this operation, all at the expense of the ones they vow to protect protect when bringing life into this world. Given their already established widespread notoriety, I'm sure introductions are not necessarily needed. However, if you are unfamiliar or could just use the refresher, allow me to introduce to you the runner-ups for the Best Parents of the Year award: Stephanie Lynn and Andrew Alexander Jenkins, aka the Resilient Jenkins. 30-year-old Stephanie and Andrew, two lovingly neglectful parents who reside in the beautiful state of Oregon, are a mother and father duo who live paycheck to paycheck on a good day, with their now, after their most recent addition to their family, a child who was the result of a literal view count goal posted to their TikTok, making a total of 5 kids, who currently reside in a rundown roadside motel, documenting their, as Stephanie likes to phrase it, harsh style of southern parenting for their children. To her, this ideal means raising your children in literal squalor while providing them with no beds, while her and Andrew both reside on the only mattresses found in the home. Consisting of a combination of children from both her and Andrew's previous marriages, Stephanie has grand aspirations of having upwards of 20+ children and eventually one day moving her family unit into a tiny home where they can continue to document their day-to-day to disapproving users of TikTok. Andrew, someone who is quite an interesting character to dissect, is a unique specimen of a man who is proclaimed to be a superstar father by Stephanie, who cites him as a hard-working parent who spends his days out working odd jobs to ensure that they can get by, as Stephanie does not believe she should have to work, as her goal is to be a stay-at-home mom who feeds her children hearty meals such as bean water. How delightful. What seems rather odd, though, is that Andrew, despite allegedly being the ideal picture of a 9-to-5 family man, can't seem to hold down a job for more than a few days, which is also equally curious as he manages to work at jobs just long enough to where he can get paid, but not before the government can garnish his wages for a child he abandoned from a previous marriage, as he is currently several $1,000s behind in child support. Yet, despite all of this and a proven tendency to desert his family in pursuit of more time with his PS5, Stephanie swears that he is the man of her dreams and that he would never in a million years ever consider leaving her all alone. Oh, never mind. He allegedly cheated on her as of only a few weeks ago. What an outstanding guy. Oh wait a second, I'm checking now. Okay, there's speculation that he didn't leave her and this is all a ruse for content and donations. Allegedly, she's done something in the past where she's alluded that she's been a victim of DV at the hands of Andrew, later revealing it to all be a quirky social experiment. So I'm sure you can already tell by these details already that this saga is going to be a rather interesting one to scrutinize, to say the least. From leaving your kids to fester in a motel after getting evicted from your 1-bedroom apartment, to phrasing it as a beautiful new beginning, to denying your children at least a somewhat better quality of life by getting off TikTok and taking up any form of employment as a noble sacrifice for the betterment of their lives, relationship dramas, breakups, pregnancies, possible cheating, so on and so forth. The story of the Resilient Jenkins is that of a family channel that, on the surface, leaves one feeling a sense of bewilderment before it is washed away with an even stronger sense of anger and disgust for the children who have to pay the price for their mother's delusions that everything is sunshine and rainbows in their grassroots upbringing. Now, before you and I dive right into this blood-boiling case of yet another family channel, built upon disgusting practices for clout and sympathy, if you'd allow me to briefly introduce myself, I'd be forever grateful. Hi, I'm Wonder, your one-stop shop for calm deep dives on some of the internet's most unsavory individuals around. I upload a new deep dive on a bi-weekly to tri-weekly basis, so if you find you enjoy what you see here today in terms of production itself, feel free to leave me a like and subscribe with the bell notification on so you never miss out on any new deep dives in the future, as well as yours truly. I'd love to meet my end-of-year goal of hitting 140,000 followers to this channel. Genuinely can't even believe I made it this far, so any and all support truly does mean the world. Also, feel free to let me know what you did or didn't like about today's video so I can work on providing a better viewing experience for you in the future. Today's dive will be structured somewhat differently, due to this being an active ongoing situation, and it's my first dive where I have a full team of editors to help me out. I hope everything translates out to your satisfaction, and that I was able to do a good job managing everything here today. Due to the sheer volume of information that will be provided here in today's dive, I'd like to give a warm welcome to our guest, fellow creator TehMimi, who was kind enough to lend me a hand by assisting us today with their narrations in later chapters so that I would be able to have this out to you in a timely manner. TehMimi does phenomenal work on their own projects, so please, by no means, don't be a stranger and do yourself a favor by checking them out after the video, as if you aren't already following them, then you're sincerely missing out. If you'd also like to help further boost my ego, or if I missed anything in today's dive, feel free to follow my Instagram, as it is the easiest way to reach out to me. I post some pretty banger content over there, so be prepared to have your socks knocked off. Didn't mean to aura farm on you like that. I also have a Patreon where you can have your name featured at the end of each video, so that's pretty cool. Link in the description. But without further ado, once more, my name is Wonder, and it is absolutely phenomenal to have you here today. Go grab yourself a snack and a beverage of the liquid variety, and let's you and I dive right into the deplorable story of the resilient Jenkins, TikTok's most notorious online parents.
Hi, my resilient besties. How y'all doing today? Welcome. We're a family of 7 who's currently homeless, living in a motel. Listen, you're finna hate me for this one, but this is my 5th child, okay?
Every now and again, I'm allowed to complain about the fact that I share a 1-bedroom with 4 kids, my husband, and 4 cats.
People who have no idea the financial struggle. I hate having to spend 80-90% of my day trying to make content.
I just want this to not be my reality anymore.
Before we can begin to fully iron out the volatile details surrounding their unwarranted virality to TikTok, we first have to begin with asking ourselves 2 very pivotal questions. Who exactly are the parental figures behind the internet's currently most notorious family channel around? And how did they come to be known as one of the most hated mother and father duos in TikTok history? Important questions to ask, no doubt, but one that will either leave us with a newfound appreciation for our childhoods, or an unfortunate sense of nostalgia to a time I'm sure we'd rather leave behind. It's quite a dice roll there, but I'm sure you and I will manage. As we briefly touched on prior, Stephanie Lynn, aka Mom, and Andrew Jenkins, aka Father, and I'm using those terms very loosely here, are a dashing couple currently residing, as of recent due to no longer being able to afford their 1-bedroom apartment, in a humble motel in the beautiful state of Oregon, consisting of their tight-knit family unit that seems to keep growing by the day, despite Miss Lynn's continued warnings from doctors that she is at a great risk of severe health concerns were she to continue treating her body like a human easy-bake oven.
With my first pregnancies, I developed 2 hernias and I got them repaired, but afterwards the doctor was like, don't have any more kids.
But not to fear, these doctors have no idea what they're saying anyways, because Stephanie, according to her, has been told by God himself that it is his plan for her to continue having children, so they can, apparently, as mentioned prior, sleep on the floor of a motel, as God also conveniently weaved into his plan that both her and her homunculus of a husband are to occupy the only bed, as this hard-working father, who works all day to avoid paying child support to another child he abandoned from a previous relationship, needs a nice and comfortable place to enjoy his PlayStation 5 in peace.
Well, that's not how God had it planned, okay?
He may have a track record of paying, I cannot make this up, a literal nickel in child support, but maybe his kid will grow up one day and realize that Hollow Knight Silk Song rightfully deserves priority over food on his table. Also, who's to say you can't do much with a nice shiny nickel? You could easily get a handful of chicle at a local gas station. Now, the resilient Jenkins has grown in numbers in recent years, with their most recent addition to the family being Resilient Jenkins number 7, who was the result of a virality goal set by Stephanie, who informed her audience that if viewers were to boost and share her content, she would allow Andrew to slither up upon her and provide her with enough baby gravy thrusts to ensure that she brings more life into this world. And, well, the views unfortunately did keep coming, and lo and behold, welcome to the world, Jenkins number 7. You will be fed a hearty meal of breadcrumbs, bean water, and whatever mystery objects can be found on the floor of this motel room, which I'm sure is just the perfect conditions for a newborn to be wriggling around in. First debuting to TikTok on July 19th, 2021. Stephanie would upload her making ribs for her family, with nothing particularly noteworthy to take away from this video. All that can really be said here is she did those ribs justice and at least seasoned them. The amount of people on TikTok who upload themselves seasoning their chicken with Dawn dish soap and salt is rather unsettling. So thank God for that, I guess. Preceding this upload to TikTok, Steph would upload further cooking videos of hers alongside endeavors with her mother, where she shaved her head bald, a mother with whom Steph would develop a strained relationship with in the coming years, with her mother eventually stepping forward publicly to state her disappointment and disapproval of her daughter's lifestyle and her relationship with Andrew, which leads one to question if life for Steph was at some point somewhat normal before Andrew stepped into her life, as it would explain why she went from having fun moments with her mother to, according to some of the comments left on these earliest videos, denying that she even knew who this woman was. At first, the Resilient Jenkins' channel seemed rather unassuming, with Stephanie developing a few followers, but nothing near the success she would see as her story became more known throughout the back alleys of TikTok. Eventually, as she maintained a relatively consistent presence on the platform, Stephanie would begin to open the latch of the Pandora's box that was her life, ever so slightly through the occasional TikTok, when she would discuss the wonderful marvels of the Resilient Jenkins' family dynamic. Quickly turning what appeared to be on the surface a rather normal video diary of a woman making food for her children, into a situation that would give way for a gradual cause of concern for the children whose welfare and well-being relied on her. In a post to her TikTok account on May 12th, 2022, Stephanie explained to her viewers that she was at the time a mother of 3 between the ages of 5, 6, and 7, stating that 2 are hers from a previous marriage, and how another was a stepson she took on the role of being a full-time mother for, and how it was her goal to eventually have 3 to 4 more children, with a desire to have these children sooner rather than later, so she can kick them out of the home in relative succession once they turn 18.
Don't mind my voice. I've been hacking like left and right, but I just thought I'd share this. Yesterday I was at the store with my kids and my man, and we have a 5, 6, and 7-year-old, and the cashier goes, "Oh, that's a lot of kids." And first of all, I was just kind of thrown off by the comment, but I was just like, it really ain't that much. And I was like, in fact, I want to have 3, 4 more. And I was like, and she was like, well, let me rephrase that. It's just a lot of kids really close in age. If I'm going to have kids, I want to make sure I spread them out so that I can have a little help with them. The older one can help them. And I said, well, for one, I'm really not about my kids raising each other. And for 2, I kind of wanted to have them all together, close in age, so I can kick them out at the same damn time. You know, I was just trying to throw a little humor and a little education for her, just to be like, you know, it's not something you necessarily want to say to moms. And we don't need that, you know? We're just living, we're just doing our thing, and if I want to pop out 28, that's on me. I don't give a crap if you think it's a lot. It's not a lot for me, it's what I can handle. I love my kids. And you should just... You gotta learn what not to say in public, people.
Seems rather odd for someone to have this unwavering dedication and love for all things motherhood, only for her end goal to be the loving act of kicking her children out at the first chance she gets.
I kind of wanted to have them all together, close in age, so I can kick them out at the same damn time.
Like, that's just like, who does that? Who's like, I want to have kids just so I can kick them out of the house. Like, why? It's almost as if she's role-playing the idea of being a good mother. And once that becomes an inconvenience or it loses its allure due to the children becoming, dare I say, tax-paying citizens with their own hopes and dreams, then I suppose the title of mother is something she'll no longer wish to uphold. Which I could sit here and try to pretend to be shocked at such a concept. But the reality is there are quite a few parents in this world who do become parents for the sake of that title, only to then pick and choose when to be a mother or father when they find that to be most appealing. Whether that be for, oh, I don't know, internet clout, bragging rights to friends by pushing your child down a route to fit the educational or career goals of your choosing, social media posts about being a great mother or father, or using it as a behind-the-scenes excuse to treat others poorly with an obnoxious sense of entitlement. Some parents are truly unfit to be a proper guidance for the world that their children will be brought and raised into. And well, from what we've discussed so far, are we even really that surprised that Stephanie and Andrew would fall into such a category? I'm gonna take a grand leap of faith and probably say no. On July 20th, 2022, Stephanie announced that her and Andrew were actively trying for their 4th child together, despite at the time still living out of a 1-bedroom apartment and barely getting by through Andrew's income as a part-time DoorDasher, and how these attempts at a new pregnancy were proving to be to no avail over the course of the last 6 months.
I pride myself on being the person who will, like, literally speak my mind, and I will defend myself if I feel what you say to me is off. So I'm struggling to have a baby. I am. It's been 6 months me and my partner, my man, have been trying to have a baby together. And it's stressful. We already lost one at 8.5 weeks. When we go in there to see our baby's heart beating, it's not beating. Okay? This is hard for people to have to go through. So to go into people's comments when they're talking about how much this is them and affecting them and wanting a baby is hurting them, and just say, oh, you're crazy, lady. You could seriously. That is so insensitive and completely not okay. I'm so thrown off by it, you know, and this comment came from my sister's friend, and I'm literally like, bro,
First of all, the only way you talk sideways to me is because you are so jealous of my relationship with my sister. My sister's friends are always like that. They're always like, I gotta like be a sister because the relationship her and her sister have are intimidating. Okay, well, it's never worked. Me and my sister are still solid and always will be. But don't come in my comments and tell me I'm crazy for wanting a baby.
For viewers at the time, it appeared as if Stephanie was going to be unable to bring another child into a flea-ridden home with lice. Yet only a month later, Stephanie announced that she was, once again, pregnant with the fourth resilient Jenkins. Hooray! How exciting! On August 6, 2024, during her announcement to TikTok, Steph expressed to fans how she felt that in her heart, she knew that this was her last pregnancy, citing how, quote, a mother always knows, which apparently her motherly intuition was a little off, given the fact that she was on baby number 5, but who's really counting? Steph continues in this TikTok on how she was rather annoyed at the fact that despite her announcement that another little Jenkins was on the way, no one in her immediate family seemed all too thrilled for neither this pregnancy nor this baby, expressing how she felt irritated at the fact that there were no plans to throw her a baby shower, citing that she sees multiple TikToks of baby showers and gender reveals, and how she was disappointed to know that she would not be receiving such an occasion herself, further explaining how no financially beneficial opportunities had opened up for her, alluding to an inability to find employment, but how this was one of God's many tests to ensure that she remained a humble human being on his righteous path.
Bet you'll skip right past this because you'll be like, oh, she don't have a fancy appealing house, which is a low life decision, but whatever. I'll just come to the realization that like this is my last pregnancy, and I think we feel it, you know. I think us moms just, we feel it when we know this is my last pregnancy, and I'm just a little bit burnt, bro, that I don't get a baby shower for this one either. I'll feel it slightly petty that ain't no one happy for me for this pregnancy either. I see all these videos with all these gender reveals with all the loved ones and all the happy people for you being pregnant, and it's like, yo, if I could just have one person besides my hubby excited for me, that would be great. Or if I could have maybe just had some opportunities handed to me before this baby, that way I could blow some money on myself, but it's okay, you know? It is what it is. God had different plans. He wanted to see me as a humble human, and I guess that's how I remain. Nah, I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry about this one.
Now, what do you say we help Stephanie out here a bit, shall we? According to her, her current goal, whether that's changed or not, is to have a new baby once a year. So as to wonder why your family is not particularly thrilled as to the announcement of you having another baby, nor having much of a desire at all to throw you another baby shower, it is probably because they are most likely more than aware that this is a situation they neither want to promote nor enable. Having crotch goblins every other day is quite an expensive hobby. According to websites such as SoFi and The Guardian, the average cost of raising a child from ages 0 to 18 in the United States is estimated to be anywhere from $237,000 to $414,000, with an approximate cost of around $23,000 a year in related expenses. Granted, that of course varies, but having children is not cheap. Not to rain down on anyone's hourly escapism by talking about the reality of things for a moment, but as I'm sure you know, we live in a rather magical economic climate, where the average cost to live in a shoebox is what, if you're around my age in your 20s, most of our parents paid in mortgages around our age back in the day. Back when our dads were rocking these kinds of shoes. Now hold on, I'm not getting all political and stuff. Just hear me out. I frequently get TikToks showing off quote-unquote affordable living for under $1,000, and it is always just a converted shed in some dude's backyard with a sink and, if you're lucky, a small AC unit for around $900. Food? Well, the federal minimum wage is still $7.25 an hour, and even if you get a job starting at $15, depending on where you live, your cost of living is going to consume about 75% to 80% of your paycheck, leaving very little for savings. For reference, here is a video I took at the store just the other day, and you can see that I bought one loaf of bread, a 240-calorie soup, off-brand cereal, ground beef, and a small drink. My total for these 5 items was $15.08. There isn't a single vegetable, fruit, or anything hardly of real nutritional value here, and this is what more than 2 hours of the federal minimum wage gets you in America. Yet, people are somehow supposed to eat nutritionally whole foods 3 times a day, 7 days a week, while working 40 to 60 hours on top of that to get by. It's just simply not realistic. Fun fact that I learned on the internet. Did you know that the average American under 30 years old has a median savings of $5,400 according to Experian? And I'm sure you'll hear people say that same old little mantra of, oh, well, you can just stretch out rice and beans just fine. And while I'm sure that's true, but millions of people shouldn't have to be stretching their budgets out thin. When 10 to 15 years ago, their same wages would afford them far more sustainability. So the long-winded point of all this doom and gloom I'm trying to make here is that Stephanie has no employment and her husband Andrew is barely able to provide, as he is a part-time DoorDasher when he feels like it, most likely bringing in the equivalent of a privileged kid's allowance every month. And yet for some reason, when faced with such uncertainty and instability, Stephanie thinks it is God's will that Andrew climb up on her and provide her with yet another child she cannot afford. Don't get it twisted, I'm not saying you should be barred from having children if you're paycheck to paycheck. But if you have zero backup plans and almost no realistic sources of sustainable income, that ensures the children you already have can eat 2 to 3 times a day, and that the new baby is provided with formula, diapers, etc., then in my strongest belief, it is incredibly selfish to bring that child into this world under such conditions. On August 13th, 2024, Stephanie posted to TikTok a video where she informs her audience that she had developed 2 separate hernias from her prior pregnancies, and how the doctors told her that it is highly advised she stops having children, as this could pose a serious health risk to her. However, being the devout believer she is, she once again was confident that this was the Lord working in mysterious ways, stating that this was, quote, not how God had it planned. She further explains that now that she was pregnant once more, she had developed yet a 3rd hernia, to which the doctor informed her that she should wear something tight around her stomach for the remainder of the pregnancy. Stephanie says how she does not like this idea, as it sounds incredibly uncomfortable, but I am unsure as to what else the doctor was supposed to do, as they had advised against a further pregnancy due to the risk of developing a hernia, and she, surprise, surprise, develops yet another hernia. So now she wants to visit another doctor, as she believes she should receive a second opinion on this matter. But I'm also not sure what that other doctor is supposed to say either. Hello doctor, I have a hernia, but I wanted a second opinion. Well, upon further examination, that is indeed a hernia. Here is a bill we know you cannot afford as you do not have insurance. Thank you, come again.
I wanted to take a second off my typical content and just kind of like reach out and see if maybe any other pregnant women have dealt with this before. With my first pregnancies, I developed 2 hernias and I got them repaired, but afterwards the doctor was like, the way we repaired it with this mesh or whatever. Heard terrible things about that since then. They told me, don't have any more kids. Well, that's not how God had it planned, okay? I've had my son, who's now a toddler, and he definitely brought that hernia back. And now I'm pregnant again, and I'm 16 weeks along, but I mean, you can almost even start to see the bulge. It is so freaking uncomfortable. And the doctor, basically, I said, my hernia is back, and she was just like, well, there's not really nothing we can do while you're pregnant about that. Just try to wear something tight around your stomach. Anyway, she said, wear something tight around your stomach for the remainder of your pregnancy, which, I mean, the stomach's got to grow too, so that doesn't sound comfortable for either me or the baby. However, pressure on the hernia, it definitely gives it relief. I'm finding it hard to eat as much as I want to. I'm still hungry because when I do eat, it hurts to digest pretty bad. And to me, another 24 weeks of this sounds kind of terrible, honestly. I'm going back to the doctor in a couple weeks to get a second opinion because I just felt like that doctor was super dismissive. She also didn't take the proper time to find the heartbeat. I mean, and which mama, especially moms who haven't gone through miscarriages, don't want to hear the heartbeat at the appointment. That's what we go for, She just was, oh, your baby's active. And I'm like, oh, you don't know what you're doing. Needless to say, I don't think that's going to be my doctor anymore. You really do got to fight for yourself in this medical field these days, so...
Also, that's something I didn't even think about till now. Having children in the States is so expensive. You ever heard of the first contact fee? This one always blows people's mind. Some hospitals will charge you $50 to $60 to hold your child for the first time. That's insane. And speaking of insane, where the insanity only grows further is as the months passed and her active pregnancy progressed. Stephanie quickly walked back on what she had proclaimed only a few TikToks prior, that being that she could truly feel as a mother that this was her last pregnancy, and instead decided to post a 9-second plea to her account on August 6, 2024, that reads as the following. Help a girl out. My hubby said if we can flip our financial position, that this doesn't have to be our last baby, and I'm not ready to stop having babies yet. The description of this post only added more fuel to the fire, which reads as, I'm not ready to say goodbye to pregnancies. To end this chapter in my life where I grow life inside my body. I don't feel done. My soul longs for another son. We even had his name picked out. Needless to say, viewers of both her TikTok page and those who actively criticize the Jenkins across numerous forms of social media were not particularly eager to lend a helping hand when they preference that they need the finances not to support the children they already have, but so that they can make their situation even worse by having yet another child. The comments on this TikTok were not exactly supportive to Stephanie either, with many users sharing their own experiences of parenthood and encouraging Stephanie to reconsider what she was doing, with mothers in the comments telling her that even despite their own combined incomes with their spouses, they decided not to have any more children if they themselves knew they couldn't realistically provide the life they wanted for them. And with the bizarre nature of asking people to donate to you so your husband can get you pregnant, especially while she was currently pregnant, many began to speculate that perhaps Stephanie was not exactly interested in becoming a mother for the sheer wonderful joy of experiencing 3 trimesters, but that this was, in actuality, just a really unfortunate fact that she shared with Andrew, with users documenting rather peculiar instances with her that may have led credence into this wild theory, particularly noting her rather strange fascination with multicultural babies. This multicultural baby-making conspiracy theory began when Stephanie posted a TikTok to her account captioned, POV, you manifested a multicultural baby. Users in the comments of this TikTok cite that this child apparently has developmental issues that prohibit him from speaking, and that leading up to her pregnancy, she was more concerned with how the baby would turn out to look when it was born, versus being more concerned about the health and well-being of said child. Stephanie has also stated in the past, in prior TikToks of hers, that she was pregnant with, quote, superior genetics, which granted her the ability to, I kid you not, fearlessly clean kitty litter. But, you know, we all know that her and this absolute stallion Andrew are providing their children with the most apex Chad-like genetics this planet has ever seen. Referring to your genetics as superior is such a cringe Reddit mod thing to do. Reminds me of something that would be said from one of those podcasts with like the uber roided out alpha male wannabes, rather than from a delusional woman in the parking lot of a motel. It goes without saying that this TikTok of hers resulted in an immediate backlash from users, which in turn caused her to delete the post before it could inevitably reach more eyes. But not before some sleight of hand individuals were able to capture a screenshot of both this post and its description. And man, I will not lie, it is quite a treat to read. But in all seriousness though, don't laugh at her. We are about to read the words of a truly superior human being. We should be honored. POV, you are pregnant with superior genetics that fight through the terrain of Makoko, and more so you don't let fear hold you back from doing normal tasks. This honestly isn't meant to ruffle anyone's feathers, it's a post giving respect to how incredible my hubby's genetics are. Okay. He makes some of the strongest, most resilient babies. Of course, I play my role. Side note, I never discredit the strength and amazing abilities of my 2 daughters from my previous baby daddy. They are unstoppable, strong little ladies that haven't let genetics or circumstances hold them back. I love that last line where she says that her 2 daughters have not let genetics hold them back, insinuating that I would assume that being white is a disability. Does that mean since I have the melanin content of toast that I get disabled parking now? Because that would be fire. Also again, as mentioned prior, she refers to herself as having the strength to do normal tasks while she is seen cleaning cat litter. So yes, she is unironically wanting you to believe that she was actually transmitted Andrew's genetics, which in turn gave her the raw power of a West African and a Puerto Rican to pick up cat poop. Logic. Who even needs it? There is actually, surprisingly, some credence that she may favor her mixed children over her non-mixed daughters, which at first many on TikTok had speculated that this was her possibly displaying nepotism to her boys over her girls. However, and this is speculative here, I won't lie, let's recall those last 2 lines from that bizarre genetics TikTok, specifically where it says, quote, side note, I never discredit the strength and amazing abilities of my two daughters from my previous BD. They are unstoppable, strong little ladies that haven't let genetics or circumstances hold them back. Well, what's very interesting is that, as of recently, the resilient Jenkins actually did acquire bed frames for some of their children after continued backlash over the last few years from the community of TikTok. But what users on Reddit quickly pointed out is that Steph and Andrew only purchased bed frames for the boys while forcing the daughters to still reside on foam mattresses in the kitchen. Now, users in the comments of this Reddit thread suggest that the reason for this is that Stephanie has a blanketed hatred for her daughters. However, and once again this is speculative, maybe it isn't a boys versus girls issue, as it is quite peculiar how her, as she grossly describes, non-genetically superior children do not get beds, but the ones she deems to be superior do. Make of that interesting little coincidence as you will. When it came to the reality as to why Stephanie was so addicted to having children, whatever the case may be, whether weird-ish or amplified maternal instincts, that despite negative backlash and encouragement to cease production, the Jenkins factory was not going to be closing down business anytime soon. But with all of this talk of pregnancy and finances, perhaps we have overlooked the quality of parenting that Stephanie brings to the table, despite the grim outlook of their living situation and their descent into economic turmoil. Who knows, perhaps we've been approaching this entire situation a tad bit harshly. Spoiler alert, we haven't. She is a terrible mother. But let's examine exactly why.
So I'm not gonna be the type of mom who pops up on my page and just has a bunch of to talk about my children.
Don't stop. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep last night because if it wasn't one up, the other one's up.
Every now and again, I'm allowed to complain about the fact that I share a one-bedroom with 4 kids, my husband, and 4 cats.
And now it's just like every 10 seconds. Mom, mom, mom. I go in the bathroom and they're right there. I go in the kitchen and they're right there. I go anywhere, they're there.
I freaking love my kids. I just want this to not be my reality anymore.
Forgive me for the glasses. I know I look like Dweebus Maximus, but my eyes were getting a tad bit tired. So if you can see my computer monitor there, shh, let's just pretend you don't. On September 9th, 2024, Stephanie would shed some light into her belief system involving how one should raise their kids in a 16-second clip that is rather vague, as she does not go in depth as to exactly what she means here, but she states that her viewers are, quote, bidden to hate her for this one, because she believes that gentle parenting doesn't do anything, and that she would be raising her children, quote, the true Southern way, whatever that really means to her.
Listen, you're finna hate me for this one, but this is my 5th child, okay? Gentle parenting don't do shit. I will not raise my kids with gentle parenting. You got me bent back sideways.
Now, naturally, this caused for concern from viewers on TikTok because, being a Southern boy myself, born in Georgia, raised in South Texas, raising your child the Southern way is quite a broad spectrum. This could mean anything from telling your child to pick themselves up from the ye old bootstraps and stand up for themselves, say yes ma'am, no ma'am, and hold the door open for other people. Or it could mean your parents heavily neglect you, use you as a surrogate cigarette ashtray, and forgetting to do a simple chore or homework could result in the wonderful sensation of your parents gifting you 50 lashings to your glutes. You hear this? It's never a fun sound to hear. Users in the comments of this TikTok question her as to what exactly she means by this style of parenting, also pointing out that she's from Oregon, which, if you need the reminder, is quite literally the 2nd most northern state on the western seaboard, so she isn't exactly from humble corn-fed beginnings herself, with many as well making note that perhaps she believes that making your children live without beds or any bare luxuries is what she believes is actually raising her children the right way. On October 10th, 2024, concern would grow even further as to the conditions these children were living in, when Stephanie would upload what she calls a night vlog of her and her children, in what at first seemed, all things considered, like a relatively harmless vlog. The section where children appear on screen is to remain blurred, but it can be seen that she takes the family out for an evening walk before heading back inside where the gang makes dinner together. Stephanie is seen teaching her children how to cut vegetables, wash dishes, and make meatloaf together, while the kids can be seen smiling and dancing to music. It was a moment that may at first leave one with blissful ignorance and a faint smile with the self-imposed question, who am I to really judge? But just when the video is about to end, reality hits you with a cold water as the camera pans and reveals that virtually within inches of the kitchen, the children's beds are nothing more than foam mattresses on a tile floor. There is indeed one separate mattress visible in the living room, but that's hardly a silver lining, especially when you consider that in what is more than likely a 400 to 600 square feet one-bedroom apartment, their family unit was already 6, with a 7th still on the way, alongside 4 cats. These children are living at all times within literal inches of cat boxes on a tile floor, which I also shouldn't have to explain that sleeping on such a hard surface is detrimental to your quality of sleep, which in turn can wreck your mental health, which is the last thing these kids need to worry about at such a young age. And a really good question that passed not only my mind, but those of commenters as well, is what happens when these children begin to reach preteen to teenager age, when they start becoming their own independent thinkers and their own individualistic people in this world. You can't realistically expect to keep 5 children packed inside of what is now the motel like a can of sardines. That is a hormonal ticking time bomb waiting to explode. And another great question posed is that the children seem happy now, but they have no frame of reference as to what a normal living situation is even supposed to look like. So again, what happens when they start to make friends at school, and then they go over to a non-invasive household, and instead of a foam mattress and a mom with a camera on 24/7, they are instead treated like normal kids in a safe and healthy environment. Their frame of reference will begin to develop, and they will quite possibly realize that instead of working tirelessly to get a job, their mother opted to leave them in squalor while she begged for donations on TikTok, just so that money could go towards making their life even more of a living hell. What I find even more sickening, and no child should ever have to face these worries, but the realization as to how far from well off their family is ironically being brought on upon by none other than Stephanie herself. As in quite a few TikToks of hers, she makes her children more than aware of their financial status, and how they are constantly struggling to make ends meet, which in turn has occasionally left the children crying, all conveniently filmed to tug on the heartstrings of viewers, so they are more inclined to donate for the sake of the children. It's genuinely just really gross. In a video archived on Kiwi Farms, most likely deleted from her TikTok account due to the rampant backlash it rightfully deserved, Stephanie relays how she had recently had humbling conversations with her children about their current living situation. In this discussion, she explains how her children had asked her one afternoon as to why her and Andrew did not celebrate their birthdays, which she informs them that since all of their birthdays are so close together, that they would rather divert what little savings they have into going towards celebrating theirs, the children's, birthdays instead. Which at first sounds like the noble parent thing to do. But when you recall that Andrew works so little as a means to avoid paying child support, and Steph actively wishes to be a stay-at-home mom, meaning she is refusing to seek any form of employment, the nobility of this statement is suddenly made hollow. She says that after telling her children why their parents do not celebrate their own birthdays, they began tearing up and discussing amongst themselves about how they couldn't believe how mom and dad don't partake in such an occasion as they want to put them first, which I'm sure made Stephanie feel like such a noble warrior of a mom, when in actuality she is actively causing this distress for her children day after day for internet clout. If your blood was not at its boiling point just yet, this video only sours even further when Stephanie goes on to share a story about how her daughter had hopefully informed her that she wanted to be Pennywise for Halloween, an occasion any child should naturally look forward to with excitement, as a night of sugar rushes and festivities is something any child should get to experience at least once a year. However, when bringing her children into the reality of an adult, Stephanie virtually shuts the door on this ambition of her daughter's, explaining to her that both her and Andrew are doing everything in their power to ensure that they can go as their desired characters for Halloween, but how money is tight and that they will most likely have to make do with whatever they can find around the house. Stephanie says how sharing this information resulted in an almost immediate deflation of her daughter's demeanor, which caused Stephanie to reflect on how many other children must face disappointment in their lives due to living in poverty, stating how unfair and undeserving such a situation is for a child to be put through, as well as how she feels that the only children who ever really get to experience recognition and personal expression are those of privileged backgrounds whose parents can afford to put a spotlight on them.
Can we talk about the humbling conversations you start to have with your kids as they develop and age into more adult-like conversations? Because yesterday my kid came up to me and said, "Mom, how come adults don't celebrate their birthdays?" And I told her it's not so much that we don't celebrate our birthdays, it's the fact that these last few years your dad and I have spent any extra means we have on your guys' birthdays. All of our birthdays are back to back, and we like to save the funds that we have available for your guys' birthdays, which means that For mommy and daddy, there's not much left over. And my kids literally started tearing up. They talked amongst themselves for a minute and they were like, can you believe that mom and dad really don't celebrate their birthday because they want to put our birthdays first? Further into the day, I had a conversation with actually my same daughter, and she told me what she wants to be for Halloween. She said she wanted to be Pennywise, and I told her we're doing everything we can to achieve trying to get you guys costumes, but at this rate, Halloween's kind of looking like we're going to have to piece together what we have at home and make it work. And honestly, her whole demeanor just sunk. She was like, I get that, Mom, and I'll do what I have to, but I was really hoping to be Pennywise this year. And it really just got me thinking, how many situations do kids in poverty are they not able to express themselves because of financial situations? How often is a kid in poverty told, well, that's not your opportunity just simply because we don't have the means? Sometimes I feel like the only kids who get a spotlight are the kids who can afford, whose parents can afford to put one on them. And hell, we're just trying to keep the lights on in the house. I, for one, believe that financial situations should never affect how a child develops and their growth and their opportunities. But that's just not how it works. It's not how it works. But I can tell you one thing. When God blesses us, because I truly believe He's going to, we will be the family that reaches out and tries to bless as many children as we possibly can. Because seeing our kids go through this and how it's affecting their development, how it's affecting their self-confidence, and just how they're growing up to express themselves in general, it's heartbreaking. I can't imagine not doing everything I can for my own kids first, but then any kid I see going through that as well.
Now, before I say anything, as I just want to make a brief comment as to how irate this TikTok of Stephanie makes me. I got curious as to how much a Pennywise costume typically goes for a child, and the average costume is about $25 to $30. This is definitely going to sound like I have some sort of savior complex going on, but there is still time for Halloween, so I will make this offer. I highly doubt Stephanie is watching this, as there is a sea of content about her across the platform, but if she somehow is, Stephanie, if you can guarantee and prove via receipts that the money will go to your daughter's costume, I will personally send you the funds for your daughter's Pennywise outfit. I would never do this for you specifically, but I would gladly do it for your daughter, because every child deserves at least one solid Halloween where they can tweak out on pixie sticks and Kit Kats. I'm sure this is just enabling your behavior, but that offer is on the table. Show me the receipts, I will give you the money. I can't express enough how delusional Stephanie comes across in this recollection of hers. Not every family gets to provide for their child the way they want to, and yeah, that genuinely just sucks. My heart goes out to those families who wake up every day in unfair circumstances, work twice as hard as most people, only to be looked down upon by those of a higher economic status, while only being able to afford a fraction of what the rest of society can. Hell, I've been there myself. When I graduated high school in 2018, I weighed 128 pounds because we just did not have food in the house. I remember in high school, I almost got expelled because I snuck off campus to get a sandwich just due to the fact I couldn't afford the overpriced school lunch and I hadn't eaten in 3 days. While at the same time in my life, I had friends who lived in big houses and ate 3 meals a day, alongside their families funding them with allowances and indulging them in all their hobbies. I'm sure it probably sounds like it, but this isn't intended to be like a woe is me moment, but more so me attempting to convey that I understand that it can be very hard out there for a lot of people. But where I take such issue with Stephanie is that despite the baseline economic factors, she is aiding in the turmoil her children are experiencing. She can't afford to take care of the children she already has, yet she is actively preaching to her viewers the struggles of barely being able to get by and provide, while she is actively pregnant with another child, and at the same time, on the verge of losing the home, with ambitions of having yet another child after this one. It is absolutely preposterous. So naturally, the sympathy cards can only be dealt for so long before you have to look in the mirror and truly ask yourself what role you are playing in the situation, and are you truly doing everything in your power to make your living situation better for yourself, but more importantly, for your kids. And when you analyze your patterns, perhaps, I don't know, having another child is probably not the best way to go. And on the subject of reaping what you sow, so to speak, in a rather hypocritical and incredibly unfair deleted TikTok that was thankfully archived from the Resilient Jenkins TikTok page, dating as far back as 2021, Stephanie had at one point uploaded a vent post where she told viewers that every now and then she has the right to complain that she lives in a one-bedroom apartment with 4 kids, a husband, and 4 cats. She explains how the worst part of having insomnia is that she has nowhere she can go in the middle of the night when she can't sleep, which would explain why she is speaking at the volume of a kid up late at night on their Xbox trying not to wake up their parents, as well as stating how she can't do the dishes because she will wake everyone up. Which, why are you doing dishes at 3 in the morning in the first place? And then follows this up with how she doesn't want this to be her reality anymore, before signing off for the night.
Every now and again, I'm allowed to complain about the fact that I share a one-bedroom with 4 kids, my husband, and 4 cats. And my insomnia is the worst part of it because am I supposed to be in the middle of the night when I can't sleep? I can't be in the room with my husband or I'm gonna wake him up. Can't be in the room with the kids and I can't even go do the dishes or I'm gonna wake someone up. And I can't go outside because I live in a town where I'm gonna get murdered outside. So, I just want this to not be my reality.
Proceeding this vent talk up with yet another now deleted post, Stephanie complains to her audience how it is incredibly frustrating how her kids are non-stop wanting her attention and how she is unable to have more than a few moments alone before another one of the kids comes calling upon her, citing how they have their own rooms and that they should go spend their time there.
Don't stop. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep last night because if it wasn't one up, the other one's up. And now it's just like every 10 seconds. Mom, mom, mom. Bro, I go in the bathroom and they're right there. I go in the kitchen and they're right there. I go anywhere, they're there. I just want to be me for 5 seconds. Just 5 minutes. I want me. I want to make a video and not have to worry that my kid came in the video and it's going to get taken down. Or I want to watch something on the TV for 5 minutes and I don't have to be like, close your eyes, get out of here because it's my bedroom. Why are you in here? You know? You have your room. You have your stuff. I don't mess with it. I don't poke at you when you're trying to sleep. I don't come snatch your hand when you're trying to eat it. Like, bro, because I'll be teaching these kids stuff. They ain't doing it. They do whatever they want all the time. But I don't know. I think I'll have my man who just spoils that me with stuff.
I do have to ask, what room is she exactly referring to here? Does she mean the foam mattress in the corner of the kitchen/dining room? Because that's not a room, that's a designated corner. My Project Zomboid character lives better than this and he sleeps on cardboard and towels. I'm unaware as to how Stephanie is unable to see how she is causing this nightmare for herself. For almost 5 years ago, she says how she is burnt out living in a situation where she can barely get by in a cramped one-bedroom apartment. And instead of drawing a line in the sand and making a promise to yourself right then and there, that you will work every waking moment to get out of that hellish situation, you instead decide to have more kids, resulting in you downgrading even further until it results in you living out of a literal motel. I kindly ask, just make it make sense. For the kids, one could hope that going to school 6 to 8 hours out of the day could act as a silver lining, because at least most days they could exist in a clean environment, and depending on any lunch programs they might potentially be enrolled in, could possibly even have a basic meal throughout their day. Then again, this is an American public school system, so I'm being a tad bit optimistic when it comes to the lunches. $8 to $12 a day for a cheese slice and bread isn't exactly a gold standard of quality. But again, all things considered, a potential silver lining nonetheless. However, Stephanie, surprise surprise, has her own unique thoughts on the school system, and believes that children shouldn't have to worry about such heavy responsibilities, like that of basic education. I mean, God forbid, her oldest child isn't even like 10. I think they can handle the crushing agony of doing basic addition and learning which president crossed the Delaware River. On January 30th, 2025, Stephanie would upload to her account a TikTok where she would address frequently asked questions from avid viewers of her content, with the topic of discussion being captioned as, "What's your thoughts on the public school system and the schedules that are pushed onto kids?" In this 3-minute post from Stephanie, she explains how she feels that the structure of the current school system is actively stealing away the time a child should be spending enjoying their childhood, citing how, at one point, she had attempted to homeschool the children, but how it was just not possible, and that her children seemed to benefit more from the social aspect of being able to interact with friends their age throughout the week.
So I'm not going to be the type of mom who pops up on my page and just has a bunch of to talk about my children, because I freaking love my kids. I love being a mom, and they're very rarely the reason why I'm overstimulated or have any kind of like mental issues at all. You feel me? Like, they're the ones that keep me sane. That being said, like, I will say something about the positions my children be in as a mother, you feel me? Like, I'm sorry, but I completely disagree with the school system. I think it's absolutely fucking whack that we have our kids running little lives like they're in their own little W-2s. Like, the whole attendance rate and the fact that, like, my kids can't take a sick day without it being marked against them. I think it's absolute. They're children. They should have absolute freedom when it comes to that, and they shouldn't have this a certain amount of days they need to be in your freaking system. And I think it would be different, in my opinion, if the schools were a little more beneficial. But in the public school system, when you have 30, 40 kids in one classroom, and a lot of times, like, my kids are coming home, I'm teaching them everything that they were supposed to be learning for that day. And I have no problem with that. Like, as a mother, you're a teacher, you're a cook, you're a cleaner, you're everything. And I'm fine with that. But I think that for my kids to be spending 7.5 hours somewhere every day, and the goal is for them to be learning something during that process, like, that should be what's happening. But since there's not enough individual attention in the public school system, the kids are literally just going to have this structured day that's planned out for them, and they get no freedom in the sense. And then when you want them to have some freedom, it's marked against them. Like, it just make sense. They're children. Why are we doing this to them? Why are we putting this ridiculous standards on our kids? And I get it. Like, we want to set boundaries and we want them to have good habits as adults. I'm not the type of person that thinks you need to sell your soul to whoever you're working with. And that's the kind of perception we're already giving these kids. I mean, because this morning, my daughter said, we're still all, like, I can barely even catch my breath. We're still not feeling good. Like, can we just stay home? And I was like, I really wish that was the case, but you guys have already missed a set amount of days this year from us not feeling good. And I have to get you guys in there because I don't want you guys in any more trouble with it. And I hate telling my kids that. I hate being like, you can't take care of how you feel right now as a child because you have to go through this stupid system. And my daughter was like, tell the government they can all wear diapers on their head. Like, for real.
Now sure, I'll take a wild guess and say that I think we all have our own opinions on the education system. It's not phenomenal by any stretch of the imagination. But where things grow concerning is when Stephanie announces that attendance should not be necessary, and that her kids have already been absent for the maximum amount of days that they are allowed in one school year.
I mean, because this morning, my daughter said, we're still not feeling good. Like, can we just stay home? And I was like, I really wish that was the case, but you guys have already missed a set amount of days this year from us not feeling good. And I have to get you guys in there because I don't want you guys in any more trouble with it.
Which could result in them getting expelled from the school, resulting in them losing their friends, which can obviously be incredibly traumatic for young kids. Or in an even more drastic scenario, the very real possibility of Stephanie and the kids being brought forth in front of a judge in truancy court. And no child should have to be involved as something as intimidating as court, due to the negligence of her mother and her beliefs that resulted in them facing an unfair punishment. Okay, let's take a look here. Okay. Yep, sounds about right. Okay, so we have fully examined Stephanie's belief system in wanting to raise her children the good old Southern way, by humbling them from an early age by constantly reminding them that they are only one bad day away from homelessness. We have established that she lives in a contradicting delusion of both wanting to take on the role of a mother and have endless amounts of children, while barely being able to take care of the ones she already has, while also lamenting the fact that she despises both her living and financial situation, and wishes her children would reside in non-existent rooms to give her peace and quiet, so she doesn't have to hide away in her bathroom at 4 a.m. on TikTok, venting to the world the circumstances of her very preventable situation.
I just want this to not be my reality anymore.
However, beyond the irrational concepts of what she believes is her being a loving and caring mother, this rabbit hole of the resilient Jenkins' saga only goes even deeper than we initially had ever anticipated, resulting in an unbelievable nightmare scenario for these children. So, ladies and gentlemen, put on your hazmat suits and gear up, because it's time we take a further look into the resilient Jenkins' living conditions, as well as the general health and hygiene, or rather lack thereof, of the family. I do warn, this section will contain mention of substance abuse during a pregnancy, parasites, and overall putrid conditions that if you are eating food, I would suggest probably wrapping that up, because things are about to get even more volatile than we could have ever expected.
So it's officially been a week homeless as a family of 7, and so far we're navigating it pretty well, I'd like to say.
Okay, is this a baby blanket? Is this the bed where your babies are sleeping?
Like I said, we've been navigating it pretty well. We've just been keeping to our pretty normal routine.
Stephanie's joking, right? You've got to tell me Stephanie is joking.
Because I just feel like the more we're together, the more we can process everything. And we're just honestly stronger together as a family.
Yep, it is. Right next to where they sleep. I don't think your essential oils is going to help when your kids get leptospirosis.
In a bizarre twist from a mother who preaches online, her unwavering desire to provide the best possible life for her children that she can, users would quickly begin to notice quite the contradiction to this belief, as she would begin to be seen in her TikToks frequently smoking while she was pregnant, which would result in an immediate backlash from viewers, prompting her to hastily delete such content from her account. However, despite these attempts to hide these actions from her TikTok, viewers were able to capture and upload screenshots to a Reddit forum, where she is seen discussing in 2 separate captions her active cannabis use while cleaning around the house. And in yet another instance that was saved and reposted to Reddit by viewers, Stephanie can be seen exhaling out smoke whilst being visibly very far along into her pregnancy, performing a small dance to artist Iconopop's hit song, I Don't Care. Note here that not only is she actively participating in smoking while pregnant, which is, I'd argue, pregnancy basics number 1, but we have to keep in mind that she has complained in the past that she has nowhere to go, as she is in an overcrowded setting with her children always being around.
Don't stop. I got maybe 2 hours of sleep last night.
I'm allowed to complain about the fact that I share a 1-bedroom with 4 kids, my husband, and 4 cats.
So she is quite possibly either doing this with the children in the home, but it is also equally as plausible that she could be indulging herself in such an activity while the children are away at school. However, the smell of smoke is something that does not air out immediately, and in severe cases can stain carpets and walls with such an odor. And where it truly gets worse is that in another screenshot posted to Reddit of what appeared to be an unassuming house cleaning vlog, users were quick to notice that there was an inhaler located on top of one of the shelves dedicated towards the children's belongings, meaning she has not only been actively smoking while she is pregnant, but doing so in a home where one of her children have an established breathing problem. That is highly self-centered and neglectful on behalf of Stephanie, but are we even really that surprised at this point? Now, I will say I have no issue that if you're a hardworking parent, you had a long work week and you want to slip out in the backyard to take a little bit of a spliff break, then I honestly by no means have no problem with that. If you've got your priorities aligned and you have your bills paid for the time being, as well as if you have the money for it and you make sure to keep it away from your kids, by all means, go crazy. But the problem is, when we really analyze it, Stephanie does not check any of those boxes. By her own public declarations, she doesn't have the money to be freely spending on such luxuries. She's also doing this indoors, which, might I add, that is also a potential risk for an eviction. And she is doing so while pregnant in a home with a child that already has an established breathing problem. Alongside this, she has been spotted in numerous additional screenshots leaving her water pipe out in the open, which means she is failing to privatize the adult activities away from her children. What is also incredibly frustrating is that she has the apparent ability to divert funds towards her recreational activities, but turns around and shows the internet her feeding her newest child in a foldable lawn chair, citing that she can't afford to purchase a new high chair and that she will just have to make do. However, most high chairs go for roughly $10 on Facebook Marketplace, and I'm unsure if this will get me in trouble with the platform, but for context, about 1 gram of her recreational substance is on average about $10 as well, meaning at one point she had the option to divert $10 towards a substance or purchase a new chair for her child. And when faced with those 2 choices, she instead opted to purchase the latter and film herself making TikToks about how she, quote, doesn't care, which couldn't be more ironically fitting. When it comes to the general state of cleanliness that these children experience in these confined walls, there is nothing to admire here either, as in a TikTok posted to her account on December 21st, 2023, a time of what should be celebration and high spirits, Stephanie only delivers more information about the dire state that her and her children were living in, where she discusses just how terrible things were for them that holiday season. The caption of this TikTok reads as the following: "No one can judge me faster than I do. Kids are unbathed, cats are covered in fleas and bites, laundry not done in the background, no presents under the tree, no fancy Christmas events to take my kids to due to no funds, broken incomplete toys everywhere for kids, my kids need new clothes." well, I'll be the first to say it. That's incredibly depressing. To say that your children are unwashed alongside them and their cats being covered in flea bites. It is completely unacceptable. For starters, while yes, I will admit that flea and tick medication are somewhat expensive when you're on a budget. Typically it averages around like $30 for a month worth of tablets. There are alternatives such as flea and tick shampoo for cats that can be afforded at a fraction of the cost. I really shouldn't have to explain this, but fleas will infest at an alarming rate if not dealt with properly. Little fun story time here, but when I was 15 and my mom kicked me out of the house, she'd been keeping her girlfriend's dog with her that was just absolutely covered in fleas. So instead of taking care of said fleas, she opted to take her monthly child support money and use it to move in with her girlfriend, using the money to pay off the remainder of the lease and do whatever else she did with it. I have no idea. That's not the point. The point is that months later after school one day, I snuck back over to that apartment and climbed up the balcony to chill in what I thought was going to be an abandoned apartment. But instead, I discovered that you couldn't even stay in there for more than 5 minutes, as if you stood still anywhere on the carpeted floor, you would legitimately start to see fleas rise up on your feet in seconds. It was absolutely disgusting. So now paint yourself the not so fun picture of these children going to bed covered in fleas and flea larvae on both their bed sheets and clothes, just for them to have to quite literally fester in a parasitic infestation. And again, tick and flea shampoo is only on average about $11, but we have seen that she would rather opt to spend that money on recreational substances instead. This is why it is so hard to feel any sort of pity for Stephanie. Obviously, one should naturally feel upset and outraged at what these children are going through, but it quickly goes tiresome when Stephanie is doing little, if anything at all, to benefit their situation, aside from sitting on TikTok all day in hopes that she'll go viral, and that viewers will donate her problems away. It's just unbearably irritating to watch. Also, something else I want to point out from this TikTok of hers is that as someone whose favorite holiday is Christmas, it is just hard for me to believe that there is nothing you can take your children to go and do in the spirit of the season, nor that you have absolutely no way to find them toys. There are plenty of organizations like Toys for Tots that work towards getting children from less fortunate circumstances presents for Christmas Day, donation centers, so on and so forth. They are not perfect, but they are far from nothing. And what amazes me is the fact that Stephanie preaches about Christianity, yet she doesn't think to get involved with a local church and to take her children to at least Christmas Eve service, which is a free and, depending on where you go, incredibly welcoming setting. Stephanie, when faced with such dire circumstances, would rather opt to sit and throw her hands up in the hopes that TikTok will save her kids, rather than strive to make any attempts to correct the situation she finds herself so miserably glued to. However, with the holiday blues aside, moving back on the main topic of the children's general health and wellness, when it came to the infestation of their home, fleas would only just be one culprit of misery, as in a TikTok uploaded on July 10th, 2025. Stephanie would reveal that her children were actively infested with head lice. Now, she was growing tired of having to do so many washes of her children, which, wait a second, you can't apparently wash your kids on Christmas, but you can when they have whatever, while also showing how she did not opt to use lice cleansing shampoo, and instead opted to use coconut water and oil on their hair, for whatever reason. Despite users in the comments of this TikTok providing her with ample amounts of advice on how to remedy the issue, Stephanie would post 3 months later on October 12th, 2024, an 11-second video where she explains that the family had been dealing with a lice infestation for months now, citing how she had tried to keep the family's hair oiled at all times, and that her own hair was becoming damaged from the lice comb they had purchased in a failed attempt to rid the lice for good. However, what is incredibly concerning here is that the children actively had lice during this time, but this was being posted nearly 2.5 months into the average school year. Which would lead one to rightfully speculate that Stephanie, despite her children having lice and stating in her TikTok that the problem began when, before summer break, one of the children had brought it home from school, that she was now, in turn, sending her own kids to school with the same problem that had caused her family months of distress and discomfort, all because she didn't want to save up and purchase over the span of several months what on average is an $11 bottle of shampoo. How is one able to truly be just so self-centered? Like, it genuinely perplexes me beyond belief. hardly being able to just sit and watch her own daughter and grandchildren suffer from the sidelines, in what was revealed to be a last-effort attempt from what had been numerous olive branches behind the scenes. Screenshots posted to Reddit would emerge from an account from Stephanie's mother, where she could be seen discussing with commenters, explaining that she has tried helping the grandchildren and that she has done everything in her power, but it had unfortunately been to no avail. This TikTok, consisting only of a single caption, reads, "I am not going to stop until I can say I am not scared for my granddaughter." The replies from users, curious as to what all Stephanie's mother had done to help her grandchildren, are met with answers that are as the following. User Amy asks, "What do you think about your daughter and all the mess she's putting her kids through?" Stephanie's mother replies, "Broken." User Brittany says, "I'm sorry you and those babies are dealing with her bad decisions. Your account is about to go wild though." Not to sidetrack too terribly here, but what an out-of-touch comment to make. To suggest that the silver lining of your grandchildren's despair is that, hey, at least you're gonna get views on TikTok, is just so grotesquely detached in my opinion. But anyways, the comments continue forward by accusing the grandmother of being an enabler, with exchanges that read as the following. "You need to report your daughter for what she's doing. Do not be an enabler." Stephanie's mother replies, "First of all, what makes you think I haven't reported her? And second of all, do you have any idea how little rights grandparents have?" Another user, clearly unfamiliar with the legal system, states, "You need to call CPS or be charged also. You know your grandchildren are living horribly and do nothing about it." To which Stephanie's mother replies, "I have done all I can do, and grandparents do not have the right to go into the home and take their grandkids." Completely unrelated to the video, but welcome to the next day. I've had a very long day. I woke up late for my psychiatrist appointment, and my walls keep flickering because my camera is dog buns quality. I had to nail sheets to my wall. Aren't I just a professional tuber? Anyways, I myself am personally unsure as to the full extent of Stephanie's mother's attempts regarding her removal of the children from their hellish environment. But again, it is rather irksome to see some individuals address her efforts with certainty, accusing her of doing nothing, when in reality, the process of getting CPS involved as well as custody is far more complicated than just picking up the phone and filing a complaint. There are an array of legalities involved. It isn't an episode of Law and Order, it's what most of us would like to call real life. At first, once these screenshots began to surface online, Stephanie would deny knowing this creator, and stated that she was unaware of who this woman was, which this claim was quickly debunked, as Stephanie must have forgotten that she had included her own mother in one of her earliest TikToks, which is still up to this day. Oops. Stephanie's mother, who, based upon her username, we will assume that her real name is Mary, would come forward on her account proving she was who she claimed to be, in several posts addressing her thoughts on her daughter's situation. On March 13th, 2025, Mary would post to her account a 3-minute-long TikTok where she explains that she has been asked multiple times what her views were regarding her daughter Stephanie and her lifestyle. She says that watching her own daughter go viral for her egregious parenting has been one of the hardest things she has ever had to experience herself as a mother. She further expressed how witnessing her daughter choose time and time again to remain with Andrew, citing him as a man who clearly does not care about nor love Stephanie or her children, is equally painful to endure. Mary states that despite there being frequent hate directed at her throughout the Resilient Jenkins' account, she says that she believes that Stephanie does not truly hate her, and that the real reason for her distance is that Stephanie was most likely aware that her mother was the only individual who could, quote-unquote, rescue her, so to speak, and that she is probably too fearful to reach out. She further insinuates that Stephanie's relationship with Drew is in fact abusive, and that is one of the reasons she most likely refuses to leave. We won't touch on it too terribly much in this video as it is an incredibly grim subject and quite frankly does not relate to what we are currently discussing, but I will lend credence to this theory that Andrew is the reason why she refuses to leave, due to the fact that Stephanie's ex-husband was in fact abusive and was arrested on predatory charges. Mary also informs viewers that the door is always open for Stephanie, as well as the children, with the stipulation that Andrew is not allowed in her home under any circumstances.
So, I've been asked a couple times now by a couple of people, what do I think about Stephanie's situation? I don't need to say Stephanie who, you know exactly who I'm talking about. Watching my daughter go viral because she's doing such a great job has been one of the hardest things I have ever had to sit back and watch. Watching my daughter make decisions to stay with a man who clearly does not care about her, doesn't care about those children, continues to bring her down, keeps her from even having the sense to reach out to her family and ask for help. I know you watch her videos and you see, oh gosh, she really hates her mom. There's really, I'm not convinced she hates her mom. I'm convinced she knows that I'm the one person who could rescue her, who could set her straight, who could help her come to her senses, and she's too scared to reach out to me. It's hard when you are living in the type of relationship that she's in to admit you're wrong and leave. It doesn't happen overnight. Anyhow, I haven't said a lot because I don't want my words to get twisted and for it to drive an even deeper wedge between me and Stephanie. I hope at some point our relationship can be reconciled and we can move past this. And I haven't seen my grandkids in over a year. I have a new grandbaby who I've only seen on social media when other people post videos of my grandbaby. The whole situation is heartbreaking and I have no other words to say about it. But I've been asked and I've decided just to at least clear the air a little bit. I am here for Stephanie, but make no mistake, I have absolutely no room in my heart, in my home, or anywhere in my I just can't even go there. Drew's not welcome here. He's not welcome here.
After this TikTok of Mary's was posted, the following day, Stephanie would make a response during a move-out, aka eviction vlog, where she publicly refutes her mother's offer, despite sharing to viewers that her and her children were unable to find a new place to live, meaning they would be moving into what would become their current residence, that being the motel, once again choosing her pride and deadbeat husband over her children's well-being. In this response, Stephanie further states how it sickens her how her mother would be trying to garner attention off of their situation, accusing her of being a clout chaser off of their dire circumstances, which truthfully just sounds more like a nasty case of projection from Stephanie if anything.
It's move-out day tomorrow, and in case you didn't catch on, we did not find a place, so we will be going to a hotel and getting a storage unit. And no, I will not be taking my mom up on her offer on me and my kids going to stay with her. That is just not going to happen. That lady popping up right now, it sickens me, honestly. And that's all I'm saying about that, because a part of me that's healed on everything that she brought on my past just does not want to spend any time on her. She gets absolutely no time of day from me. And that is for me to decide. It's not up to a bunch of strangers to decide what I should and shouldn't forget from a past you weren't even there for.
Now, to play somewhat of devil's advocate here, and I truly do mean like ever so slightly, I do agree with Stephanie that sometimes, despite how it may seem on the surface, relationships with parents can be incredibly personal and riddled with traumatic experiences, and sometimes nothing is ever worth opening those doors again. I will also state that we need to be honest with ourselves in the fact that we also don't know the full extent of their relationship. That being said, when faced with such a dire situation, I would find, at least for the sake of the children, that it would make the most sense to, begrudgingly, find some sort of middle ground where the kids can stay with their grandmother, while her and Andrew figure out their situation and find reliable income. What also further disturbed me from this TikTok of hers is that Stephanie states that she was unable to find any homes nor shelter where she would be able to surrender her 4 cats to. And so she makes mention of the fact that she had called animal control on her cats, her children's cats that they have been raised with, mind you, and that animal control had arrived earlier that day and picked up the pets.
Now I know you're thinking, well, what about the cats if you guys didn't find a place to go and you didn't find anywhere for the cats to go? Despite the mantra that everybody blew me up and wanted everybody to believe, I never wanted to abandon these cats. But from my research, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but all of the shelters and sanctuaries in my area are tapped out for resources. I wasn't able to find any family or friends to take them while we try to figure this whole situation out. It's freaking sad, and I don't think many people are going to understand it, but I had to make the decision of actually calling animal control back myself and asking them to take the cats because I don't want these fur babies actually to be abandoned. That's the last thing I freaking want.
However, during their so-called moving out vlog, keen-eyed viewers were quick to notice that during a sped-up section of the video, there was a moment where it can be seen that one of the cats was trying to enter back into the apartment, only for Andrew to then pick it up and throw it out the door like garbage. In response to the criticism, Stephanie complained in a Facebook post that no one had offered to take the cats before they had to leave, alluding that they had indeed simply abandoned the animals, a contradiction to her prior claim that they had called animal control, which, had she followed through in doing so, in her area, Animal control would have taken the cats to the Oregon Humane Society, which is a no-kill shelter with a 98% save rate. But I suppose she just couldn't be bothered to do such a thing. Upon their eviction, miraculously, a woman named Shailene Fuller, and forgive me if I'm mispronouncing that name, posted to TikTok about finding one of the Jenkins' cats, Milo, noting that the cat looked incredibly thin. Shailene would then follow this TikTok of hers up with an update where she showed that she had taken Milo to the vet and that he was riddled with a nasty flea infestation as well as having a flea allergy, meaning that the flea infestation that the family had been dealing with had most likely not been resolved since Christmas of last year. How genuinely inexcusable and deplorable.
So there's the kitty, so I'm gonna see if I can get her. Hi. Oh, poor baby, you are so thin. Come here. Hi, baby. They said it looks like a really bad flea allergy. He literally won't leave my side.
In another irrational case of projection from Stephanie, upon seeing her former cat being rehomed and taken to the vet, Stephanie would make a passive-aggressive call-out post to her Facebook, saying that she had revisited the property and spoke with animal control, citing that they informed her that Milo had indeed been taken, which I personally don't believe she held this conversation with animal control, only to then conclude her post with the accusation that Shailene had only rescued this cat for internet clout. Shailene would reply to this post, calling Stephanie out on the fact that she claimed she couldn't locate a home for her cats in time, but had she called upon her audience, she would have been more than willing to take the cat, citing that the reason she took the cat was not for clout, but because she cared about the well-being of this animal, stating that she believed Stephanie was simply bitter at the fact that others showed up for the cats when she had opted to just abandon them. Other users, including a volunteer from the Oregon Humane Society, began to come to the defense of Shailene by calling out her hypocrisy regarding accusations of clout chasing, with the volunteer personally offering to meet Stephanie to take custody of the cats, even providing her an alternative to his offer by telling her where she can safely drop off the cats into trusted care. Stephanie, not wanting to take as what she would believe to be a handout, instead only continues to vent about Shailene rescuing their cat Milo for supposed clout, asking why she had to rescue her cat specifically, as if she didn't make a public post that she would be abandoning her cats soon, and questioning what Shailene was doing for other strays in the area. A genuinely bizarre display of denial and deflection that lacks any form of logic or rationale from Stephanie. On March 17, 2025, only a few days after the immense backlash due to the cat controversy, Stephanie's mother would upload a final TikTok to her account, where she claimed that she was actively trying to help her daughter, and that she had even had a verbal dispute with the CPS over the situation, both denying Stephanie's claims that she was coming forward publicly in pursuit of followers, while also defending a woman by the name of Desiree, Andrew's ex-wife, encouraging her to take back custody from their child's deadbeat father.
So today has not been a good day. Knowing this is it, they're out. I don't know where they're going to be, what they're doing, how they're going to make it. I don't know. And it hurts me because I've been going through pictures of me and my grandkids when it was just Stephanie, me, and the girls. And honestly, right now I'm looking at a picture of Addison conked out in my lap. I had such a close bond with her girls. Can you imagine the trauma they feel? Suddenly grandma's not in their life, and they're probably wondering why. They probably want to know why. Why doesn't grandma love us? And who knows what she's telling them. Yeah, I am trying. I actually got into it last night with CPS because I feel like they don't give a... They don't care. You know what they had to ask me? Well, do you know this is happening? Or are you just suspicious? And I said, not only do I know this is happening, about 1 million people know it's happening because they're posting it all over the internet. I don't know how to feel about all of this, but I can tell you one thing for sure. I wish grandparents had more rights in the state of Oregon. I wish there was more I could do. I wish whatever this thing is between me and Stephanie, I mean, I'm so confused. She has 5 siblings, and I have a great relationship with all 5 of them. So this trauma that she's talking about, I don't want to say it's not real for her because I'm not going to take away how she feels. But what the is she doing? And why, when I'm right here wanting to help her, did she turn around and say I'm doing it for views and monetary reason? I make a good living. I'm fine. I don't need money off of views. As a matter of fact, if y'all want to stop following me so that she doesn't think I'm just doing it for followers, go for it. It's frustrating, beyond frustrating. And I just, one thing I wanted to address, people keep asking, would I take Deshaun too? Why wouldn't I take Deshaun? But I would only take him long enough to help Desiree get him back. Because for God's sakes, that woman deserves her kid. It's ridiculous. They lied to me about that. Stephanie told me that when she met Drew, Deshaun's mom had abandoned him years before. The lies that have come out of those two mouths since they got together. It just, there's too much to say. I'm pissed because my daughter is choosing to put those kids into a hotel room instead of coming here and just making whatever she's got going on between us work, because she wants her man she manifested. I don't know what else to say right now, okay? I appreciate so much, so many of you who have supported me and said some very nice comments, and the rest of you, I don't care. Have your opinions. I only want what's best for those kids. That is the only thing I want for those kids. I just want them to be safe. And crammed into a hotel room for God knows how long is not safe.
Now you may be wondering after that clip, who exactly is Desiree? And what is the nitty-gritty as to the story between her and Andrew? Which I will be honest and say that there is quite a bit to unpack there. And so I believe that we are long overdue for a further examination into the rabbit hole that is the sad excuse of a father figure that these children are stuck with, aka Andrew Jenkins.
Hi, I'm the first baby mama. Since we're on here speaking about the resilient Jenkins, actually, he has more than one son.
It's hard to raise daughters when you don't have confidence, and it's especially hard when it seems like you have a partner that doesn't know how to kind of assist you in that self-confidence issue, because he's just not verbally expressive about how he feels about you.
That man that everybody's saying they have two loving parents walked out of his son's life when he was 2.
I can say I really do know every occasion he's told me I'm attractive or I'm beautiful, and it's been 3 times in the past 3 years. So.
He hasn't paid child support, but he has a PS5. I feel bad for those kids. I literally feel bad for that they have to sleep on the floor.
And he does a lot for his family. He does a lot for me.
Our beloved Andrew Jenkins, uniquely named by the followers of the Resilient Jenkins TikTok account page as No.W2 Drew, is a loving father who works on an oil rig making $200,000 a year to provide for his family that he loves very, very much. No, I'm completely messing with you. Andrew Jenkins, aka the Rat Man of Portland, Oregon, is the near 30-year-old father figure of the Resilient Jenkins' household, who works, on rare occasions, part-time odd jobs such as DoorDash for incredibly short periods of time. Yet, according to Stephanie, who publicly swears by his unwavering dedication towards his family, Drew is, for the most part, out of the house for the majority of the time. Which begs the obvious question that Stephanie wishes to ignore, that being, if Drew isn't employed 95% of the year, how exactly is he, as she describes, out working hard to provide for the family? I don't want to draw any speculative connections here, but I am curious as to if Drew's recent scandal involving allegedly cheating on Stephanie would have anything to do with those missing gaps of his presence throughout the day. It certainly boggles the mind, doesn't it? Despite being obviously a disinterested father figure to every viewer of their TikTok page as well as her own mother, Stephanie is convinced that Drew is the gold standard of super dads across the globe, swearing that he is a loving father who works tirelessly for their well-being, awarding his efforts with a brand new PS5, which seems like a rather odd financial choice to make given the fact that the children were still sleeping on the floor, as well as the fact that each one of them have a singular dedicated utensil to their name, as she for some reason only provides her children with one utensil each, which is just odd because for $1 you could even just buy the plastic forks and get like 100 of them, but I don't know, logic doesn't really apply to this woman. Stephanie has received endless backlash from those who point out the absurdity of both staying with Drew, as well as providing him with a $500 gaming console when in only a few TikToks prior she claims that she cannot afford clothes, lice shampoo, or toys for her children. And so she receives this criticism, I believe rightfully so. In a few failed attempts to quell the anger directed at her for her blatant contradiction, she has posted TikToks featuring Family Game Night, where she shows viewers what at first looks like Andrew and the kids playing games together as a means to make viewers believe that she had actually bought the console for the family. But upon further examinations, the children's remotes aren't even turned on, which means she more than likely staged this, and the father is playing a single-player game. So, in actuality, Family Game Night was really just her children sitting in complete and utter boredom as they watched their father enjoy his new shiny toy. W2 Drew's online notoriety as an absent father was thoroughly established through Stephanie's inability to not film every single aspect of their lives. However, the lines of Drew being a rather milquetoast figure to that of being an aggressive abuser would be intentionally blurred for some time due to a failed bid from Stephanie that I believe was an attempt to garner sympathy and donations from fans. It was an act that treated Drew as a sacrificial lamb, so to speak, in the hopes that their family would go viral, which I would imagine he would have had to agree to such a plan, as such a stunt would cause any rational human being to leave their partner in a heartbeat. On February 5th, 2025, Stephanie would make a post where she looked defeated with the caption, quote, "Making the breakfast he'll eat, because if I don't, he won't eat, and it'll somehow be mine or the kids' fault." Naturally, this led people in the comments to speculate that she was obviously insinuating that Drew was a violent man, and that if she slipped up in her duties, that he would take out his anger on both her and the kids. Users rightfully questioned why she would choose to allow her children to remain in such a volatile situation, as well as wondering why she would continue to have children, only for them to be brought into the world with an abusive father. This painted Drew in a foul light, more so than before, which resulted in the exact opposite reaction that Stephanie had intended, that being the hope that she would receive sympathy and donations for the sake of the children. However, in an attempt to backtrack this reaction, Stephanie would post 1 month later a follow-up video where she revealed that this had all been a big social experiment to see if the internet would prove that they were eagerly intent on watching the downfall of their family for entertainment, stating further that before she had made the fake DV post, she had only ever made posts discussing about how great Andrew is as a father. Which just isn't true, as she has made countless posts on how Andrew doesn't openly express his appreciation for her, as well as making the claim that he has only called her beautiful a grand total of 3 times in the last 3 years.
I can say I really do know every occasion he's told me I'm attractive or I'm beautiful, and it's been 3 times in the past 3 years.
And on her 30th birthday that just passed, Andrew had made her a breakfast that appeared to be reheated frozen food, leaving her to make her own birthday cake, which, despite all of Stephanie's many glaring flaws, that is just incredibly sad. But where things take an even darker turn in regards to Drew's character is when Andrew's ex-wife, Arlita, that would be the mother of his first child, would see her husband become a viral figure of controversy online, and would come forward with her own experiences discussing exactly just the type of man Drew was behind closed doors. On what was archived to Reddit on October 30th, 2024, Andrew's first wife would post a 10-minute expose to TikTok, where she went in depth on how Andrew had walked out of her child's life when he was only 2 years old, and that he hasn't seen this son of his since they were 5. She goes on to explain how Andrew has repeatedly failed to pay child support, and that when their son asked if he could see his father, Arlita allegedly reached out to Andrew just for him to allegedly leave the message on read. Arlita elaborates in the weeks prior that there had been a court case to address Andrew's failure to pay his legally obligated child support, and how she intended to remove Andrew's surname from her child's identity as a means to distance herself and their child from that chapter of their lives.
Hi. Since we're on here speaking about the resilient Jenkins, actually, he has more than 1 son. Hi, I'm the first baby mama. I'm absolutely embarrassed the fact that that's my donor. I will not be posting my child on here, but my son is almost 12. That man that everybody's saying they have 2 loving parents walked out of his son's life when he was 2. Hasn't seen his son since he was 5, and that's because I reached out to him to come to his kindergarten graduation, and at the time he only had 1 child. Now my oldest doesn't even know he has 2 other siblings. So no, they didn't meet when he had 1 child. He probably has more, He hasn't paid child support, but he has a PS5. I feel bad for those kids. I literally feel bad for that they have to sleep on the floor. And that man has not changed. And it's disrespectful. Mind you, my child's name is being changed. Because I never not wanted my son to not know his dad. And he's asked, and I've tried. I have receipts. I've tried to get him to be a part. Even his son asked, Mommy, I just want to know my dad. Mind y'all, when that happened, I reached out to him. He read the message, never replied.
After these videos of Arlita began to garner traction, quickly leading towards further criticism and condemnation of the resilient Jenkins, both Andrew and Stephanie were quick to form a response to these claims, and the details they shared were made clearly in a rushed manner, so they failed to recognize how this supposed defense of Andrew had only resulted in making him look even more of an irresponsible father figure than before. In what would later be another archived piece of resilient Jenkins history over on Reddit, due to Stephanie and Drew conveniently deleting their response, which is, in my opinion, never a good sign when attempting to prove your innocence. The couple would attempt to refute Drew's alleged negligence as a father. In this archived TikTok of theirs, Drew would explain that he had been paying for child support via garnishments, which for those who are unaware, that is not a positive thing, as when the government garnishes your wages, it in most cases means you have neglected payments for so long that the government has ensured that you will be removing a portion of your paycheck to maintain your legally required obligations. To my knowledge, this would be a last resort option to obtain money from Drew. They further elaborate how he has worked multiple jobs yet was unable to find employment above $22 an hour, and that at one point he had maintained consistent employment as an HVAC technician, but that he had only received a $4 raise during this time, citing how others in his field typically receive an $8 raise, resulting in an hourly pay of around $30 to $32 an hour. But if we were to minus the baseline of that number, according to his own math, he would have at least been making $26 an hour with a maximum of $28 an hour. So, as it would seem, Drew had already contradicted himself in the first minute of this response. He explains that the issues began to arise with his employment at the HVAC company due to him requesting far too many days off. But his reasoning for this is that he needed those days off so he could find better employment that pays a higher hourly wage, which just seems to be a feeble excuse as during the age of digital job hunting, I would argue that you could maintain your current employment during the day for your children's sake, while begrudgingly looking for employment elsewhere during your free time when you're off your shift. I would at least assume that would be the logical approach anyways. I know it's tiring. I've worked jobs before that I absolutely hated where I work 5 days a week, get off at like 12 o'clock at night, and I needed to find another job. And slight bit of devil's advocate, the job market is dog buns, is dookie. But when you have other people to rely on, such as your children, I think your hands should be realistically and morally tied due to the fact that you have other people relying on you. You don't want to deal with that? Don't have kids. Shifting their focus back onto the subject of child support, Drew confesses that the government had already taken out $9,000 to $10,000 in taxes, which he, quote, allowed to happen, spoken as if he really had much of a say in the matter, and that he currently was in debt with $6,000 still owed to Arlita, stating that he was actively 4 to 5 months behind in payments.
Well, it's not.
I guess a public response.
Yeah, our public response.
Cool. What should we address first?
Let's address the child support thing.
Child support. Okay. The child support and child. I only have the one other child. I've been paying child support via garnishments ever since I can remember. Worked nights, multiple jobs, never made above 22 an hour.
Work jobs that works your body to the bone.
Yeah, I've worked retail, I worked overnight, I worked at Home Depot. I pumped gas. I pumped gas. I did HVAC for a year, and even HVAC. People say, oh, HVAC, you pay. Hey, I was there for a year, doing the most work, coming on the weekends to do scrap metal, and then going to Jackson's, and I only got a $4 raise after a year. And people got an $8 raise, making 32 plus. They sat me at 24. My workload didn't equal out what I felt to what I was getting paid, or deserved to get paid, especially how fast I was picking things up. and how hard I was working. And there wasn't any complaints. The complaint was, oh, you're requesting too many days off. Yes, because I want more money, so I'm trying to find other ways to make money.
This man has done everything he can
The child
to
support,
provide.
the child support thing. I don't know what to tell anybody. I've been paying for years via garnishment. They've taken out 9-10 grand, and I let them. I didn't fight any of it. If the other party hasn't received it, that is not on me. I don't have any of that money. I think I owe $6,000. That's all I owe, which most of that got taken care of last year. Everything else is via garnishment, except for now, because I haven't got. I guess except for now, 4 or 5 months behind. Things happen.
Drew refused to elaborate as to why he failed to maintain a presence in his prior child's life, which I feel the saying "silence can speak 1,000 words" is oddly fitting here. But what the two do address is that the reason why the children did not have beds and bed frames until recently was because the children had allegedly already had beds and bed frames, but that the kiddos had decided to destroy these bed frames for unknown reasons. Stephanie then cites that the children are indeed destructive, and that they have in the past torn up their sheets and bedding as well. So I suppose the children turn into something adjacent to that of Call of Duty zombies when they get bored. Who knows? And you know, not advocating for children to reduce their bed frames to its basic raw materials, but can you really blame them? They live in a fucking motel. They have like 5 feet of entertainment. Drew also addressed the long-awaited reasoning for letting his kids sleep on the foam mattresses by sarcastically telling viewers that at the end of the day, mattresses are just foam beds with a cover on them anyways, so it's not even a big deal when one stops to think about it, which is an incredibly dismissive and incorrect statement to make.
They want to know why you're not involved in this.
Oh, why?
Yeah.
I don't need to explain why.
And that's the thing. It's not their life for us to explain. It's our life. It's our perspective. It's what we've been through.
People are gonna judge regardless.
And that's
fine. I know. I've been judged all my life. I'm just letting them know they think the child support's one thing, and this is if they believe people are gonna believe from one side or the other. That's entirely up to whoever watches or listens to this. What else are we addressing? The destructiveness?
Yeah, there's
speculation going around that we bought, quote unquote, bought foam toppers for our kids. They had frames, they had mattresses, sheets, pillows, the works, even little drapes on their
princess tapestries.
Yeah, they hung on everything and bent everything and broke it and tore it down, and
kids are destructive. They're especially our two girls. They bent the hell out of the metal frames and all that, making it more or less a hazard. So we had to remove from the house, and then they tore up their sheets and all bed covers and all that. And if you guys don't know, when anybody orders a bed is a giant piece of foam. When you go on to order a bed, it says foam mattress or memory foam with the pillow top. It's all foam. If you guys didn't know, it's just I thought that was common knowledge, but I guess that's something that you guys know now.
Rounding off this response, the couple states that the two of them had been trying their best to provide for their family and to turn things around financially over the last 3 years, most likely referring to the creation of their TikTok account due to the specificity of that time frame, and that this feat of theirs had been growing harder and harder by the day, as the cost of living had only been going up. But the issue here is that I would go out on a crazy limb here and say that having more children would quite literally be the antithesis of the solution to such a problem.
Yeah, for 3 years I've been doing my absolute best to try to make something happen. And I did too. I worked W-2 jobs. I'm not gonna justify the reason that being home with my kids.
Things have increasingly got more expensive over the years.
Mm-hmm.
My rent has gone up.
It's gone up $300 since we got together.
Andrew, somehow apparently being the ladies' man that he is, had yet another son from a prior relationship that he allegedly had custody over. That being Deshaun, the eldest of the Jenkins children. A child that, again, Andrew allegedly had custody over, which left many confused as to how a judge would have possibly ruled that him and his living situation would have been better suited for Deshaun than for him to be living with his mother, Desiree. The woman, if you recall, that Stephanie's mother had urged to take back custody of her own child in her own video.
One thing I wanted to address, people keep asking, would I take Deshaun too? Why the hell wouldn't I take Deshaun? But I would only take him long enough to help Desiree get him back.
Drew and Stephanie were not shy by any means to make allegations against this ex of his, with the two publicly alleging unfounded claims that this Desiree individual would drink while she was pregnant with Deshaun, and that the reason that the child isn't more damaged than he already is thanks to the, quote, beastly genes that Andrew had provided him with. I guess we're going back down with the superior genetics card again. So outrageously f***ing stupid. Stephanie cites in the description of one post regarding Desiree that it has been hard to watch her stepson deal with the daily struggles caused by the effects of having a mother who drank while she was pregnant, citing that the mother was selfishly too weak to let go of her habits for the benefit of the child. Which, I'm sorry, Stephanie surely must be joking here, right? She has not only consumed cannabis on multiple occasions while pregnant, but she has also publicly discussed her consumption of psilocybin mushrooms alongside these instances as well. To my knowledge, not much is known about Desiree, as there's not much about her documented on social media. However, from the few instances that I've seen, users have noted that Desiree does not appear to be entirely in the best of health nor mentally present, which has led to a discussion as to what she could have done for the courts to decide that Andrew would make for a better parent, with some users as well outright refuting that there is custody to begin with, making claim to rumors that Andrew refuses to allow his child into the care of this woman for unspecified reasons. The most information that can be uncovered regarding Desiree is from a video posted by a creator of the name Cursed Eye, who had uncovered through court documents that Desiree had petitioned the courts for full custody of Deshaun back in 2022, which this petition was ultimately denied. However, the alleged reasonings for this filing in the first place, as provided in the document, are shocking to say the least. In her declaration, Desiree had made the claim that Stephanie had given Deshaun a black eye and alleged that she had the pictures to prove it, further stating that Stephanie had anger issues and that neither Stephanie nor Drew would permit her the ability to see her son. A few days after the video from Cursed Eye was posted, Stephanie would respond in a TikTok of her own, telling viewers that she refused to defend herself against such grotesque allegations because she believed nobody online would listen to her side of the story anyways, which is never a good look. But what did not help alleviate her from the scrutiny of these allegations was when she merely stated that, quote, accidents happen. Make of that as you will.
Go on, explain yourself. If I explain myself, you're not even going to take 2 seconds to actually pay attention to my perspective. You're going to go ahead and listen to all the perspectives that are put out there about me. Make that make sense. You want me to sit here and explain my side of the story, but you're not even going to listen to it. So what is the point? How the are you going to get to know if what everything is being said about me is actually accurate if you've never given me the time of day to get to know me? All I will say is accidents happen, and if I was some kind of Drew would not be with me. He most definitely would not be with me.
In early January 2025, TikTok users who were heavily invested in the day-to-day life of the Jenkins family uncovered a court filing that revealed that the couple had been in the midst of an ongoing eviction, with their first filings dating back to early of December 2025, with the stated reason being a failure to maintain payment to their respected landlord and or leasing agency. An account by the name of Jenkins.Eviction on TikTok was quick to leak screenshots of these court filings to their page. However, this account was soon after privated for unknown reasons. Despite this, however, it did not prevent users who stumbled across the Jenkins.Eviction account from downloading and saving what they could beforehand, resulting in a handful of creators reposting the information discussing the revelation that the resilient Jenkins were soon to lose their one-bedroom apartment. On January 11th, Stephanie would not directly respond to the credibility of these rumors, but instead would post to her account a TikTok where she vaguely explained that she had recently received discouraging news, citing that it was merely the devil attempting to get inside her head.
So I just got some somewhat discouraging news, to say the least, and I really just feel like it's the devil just trying to get in my head and stop me in my tracks when I'm starting to feel like God's plans are unraveling for us.
Still publicly maintaining denial regarding their eviction, only 8 days later on January 19th, Stephanie would post yet another update video where she explained that her and Andrew were actively trying to find a new place to move, and that such a process was not proving favorable at the time. However, Stephanie was not able to hide from the truth for long, because once it had become clear to her that the court filings regarding their eviction had been posted across multiple accounts, she had no choice but to admit the legitimacy of these rumors. In an update to her Facebook, she addresses that the photos of Andrew in court had emerged on TikTok in the days prior, speculating that an employee of the courts must have taken a photo of him illegally, openly citing her disgust with those who were using her name to, as she described, boost their own views on TikTok, which feels somewhat ironic due to the countless past videos of her begging for viewers to make her and her family go viral. I suppose the saying, "be careful of what you wish for," fits appropriately into this scenario. It's unknown who exactly took the alleged photo of Andrew during their court hearing, but what can be found is that on February 19th, 2025, a user by the name of Fancy posted a discussion on Reddit where they had informed users that they had managed to be present during one of these eviction hearings, detailing that only Andrew was present at the time, and that the courts informed him that the family had until March 16th to vacate the premises, and if both he and Stephanie complied with this ruling, that the case against them would later be dropped in May. 5 days after this post was made to Facebook, on February 22nd, Stephanie would upload a TikTok where she finally discussed the eviction publicly, both venting to her viewers about the woes of mom shaming, and how she's tired of others attempting to make content out of her misery and inability to find a new home. Following this TikTok, she would go on to upload 2 more videos to her account discussing the eviction, where she explained to viewers that she had only 19 days before the family moved out, aka was fully evicted from their apartment. What is so bizarre about this video is that despite her not only having any idea as to where her and her family would be moving, she describes the situation as bittersweet, citing this to be the home that housed their family for many years, but how she was eager for their next chapter, making the claim that they were finally moving on to a better living situation. She then tells viewers that despite not being accepted into any of the apartments they've applied for, that she can feel that this was God's plan unraveling for their family.
We got 19 days until move out date. Yeah, you heard that right, 19 days. So here's to one of the last Sunday resets in our home before we move. As excited as I am for new growth opportunities for our family and moving into a better situation, I'm definitely a little bittersweet. This is the home that's housed us for the past 3 years, the home that we've grown our little family in. We added 2 awesome members to our family. And honestly, as someone who has moved around a lot as a kid, I really appreciate the fact that my kids have been to the same school for the past 3 years, and they really have developed a lot of friendships there. And for as many downfalls as this apartment has, I'm always fearful that I'm just going to run into worse going somewhere else, to be honest with you. But that's not the positive mindset we're working on. I truly believe that this is God's timing and we couldn't have moved ourselves any faster. We have made attempts to try to move out of here previously and we were just denied. I'd be lying if I said I'm not a little fearful that's going to happen this time around too, but I really do believe this is God's timing. And then obviously it's not like we have much choice, right?
Yeah, I guess that God works in mysterious ways such as court-ruled evictions from prolonged failures of paying one's lease agreement. Very divine miracles happening there for sure. How touching. After the cat was out of the bag that the resilient Jenkins were soon to lose their home, Stephanie saw this as yet another opportunity for virality, something she seemed to contradictively despise. And so she would begin to vlog her move-out process over the following weeks. Some of these vlogs have already played a role in prior scrutiny throughout our analysis. 16 days before their required move-out date, Stephanie uploaded a vlog where she would express her growing frustration at her current situation, explaining to viewers after multiple attempts that she had come to realize that her family did not qualify for anything within their budget, as due to their lack of income, they were unable to locate any 2 bedrooms within their price point, and even if they could locate one, the law prohibits 2-bedroom apartments from exceeding a maximum capacity of 5 people living within the residence. Stephanie also opens up a little bit more about her and Andrew's employment situation, where she confirms that her and Drew have been seeking self-employment options, with hers being a full-time content creator on TikTok, which obviously was not panning out for her, and that Drew was unable to work due to having a sudden drastic decline in his health over the last year, citing that he was not the deadbeat father that users made him out to be in the comments, which was quite the contradictory claim to make, as what was discussed discussed previously, when Drew was being called out for his lack of child support payments, it was stated that the reason he had left his prior job was due to him requesting too many days off and that he felt disrespected for receiving a $4 raise, with him essentially refusing to take any form of employment that was under $22 unless he absolutely had to.
Start this video off by saying thank you to everybody who's taken the time to reach out and let us know of housing resources that you know of. Both Drew and myself have called every single one of those resources, as well as every resource 211 has given us. But unfortunately, just like we were met with months ago when we tried to relocate, every resource that I've called is just tapped out in this area. We're not completely locked into staying in this area. We are open to moving a little bit out of the area if that's what we need to do. But it would be great to stay in the area and keep the kids in the school they're well established in. Like I mentioned, our income has not changed too drastically from the last time that we tried to apply for other apartments. That being said, we still don't qualify income-wise for anything more than a 2-bedroom. Maximum capacity for most 2-bedrooms is 5 people and we have 7. Of course, it would be incredibly ideal to be in a 3 or 4-bedroom, but income-wise, we still can't afford that. I'm quite frankly sick of seeing comments about y'all acting like this is just on Drew and he's some kind of deadbeat. He didn't just outwardly quit working just because I started making money on social media. Back when Drew was working his W-2 jobs, he had a tremendous health decline, and that is why we made the choice to start doing self-employment. And when it seems like the right time, we'll open up to our community about those health issues. Okay, bye-bye now.
On the final day of the Resilient Jenkins residence, Stephanie uploaded her last entry into her eviction diaries, where she seemed oddly uplifted and high-spirited for somebody who had just lost their home and is facing homelessness. The last few frames of this TikTok state, "Goodbye to the home we became a family and grew together in. On to new beginnings." However, it would be revealed that those new beginnings weren't going to be so grand, as many were still wondering if her and Andrew had not been accepted into any of the housing in their area, then where was this new destination that Stephanie seemed all too enthused about? Well, much to the outrage of those who had been following her journey out of genuine concern for the well-being of her children, only a few days after their final move-out vlog was posted, Stephanie would reveal that the better living situation she had discovered was actually in a roadside motel in a crime-ridden side of town, which users quickly discovering the location of this motel only found out that it had allegedly been the recent scene for 3 separate in a 1-month period. However, it definitely needs to be noted that this is just a rumor that has been echoing throughout the comment sections on TikTok. Much to what would soon be understandable outrage and backlash, Stephanie would reveal on March 22nd the conditions in which this family of 7 was and now currently still is residing in, presenting how she was using the motel shower as the designated location to wash dishes, with only a small counter in the main living area that was riddled with various assortments of junk, all in a cluttered disarray, as well as showing their kitchen setup, which was revealed to be nothing more than a cheap plug-in griddle and a power extension cable. This was beyond an unacceptable environment to be raising her children in. Stephanie and Drew had managed to somehow lower the bar of their children's living situation to a point that users had previously thought implausible. But here she was, actively putting her children through hell due to her refusal to seek employment and Andrew's inability to put down the controller to his PS5 and provide, because he had thrown away his prior job as an HVAC technician for an imaginary career that he was just waiting around for to fall into his lap and make everything better. Which, this is somewhat examining the fine details a little too closely, as it goes without saying that Andrew is a far cry from a respectable father figure. But going off of what Andrew had described he was making with his raise, roughly $28 an hour, give or take. Which is a lot, by the way. Like, that's, maybe for their state, it's not as much, but where I live, that's a good amount of money. I mean, it's not like millionaire status, but it's substantial. Stephanie had stated in a prior TikTok some time ago that they were unable to afford their 1-bedroom apartment, as it was a baseline before utilities around $1,250 a month. So let's do some hypothetical math here. If Andrew worked 40 hours a week at $28 an hour, before tax, his take home for that week would be somewhere in the ballpark of $1,120, which is almost the entirety of their rent in 5 days alone. Now, as you can imagine, there are 4 weeks within a month, so we're going to multiply that number by 4 before tax. Andrew could be looking at a consistent estimate of about $4,480 a month. That is nearly 3 3 times the amount of their base rent. And this isn't even including the additional few $100s a month that Stephanie was receiving from her payouts on TikTok. I also must remind you that he threw this opportunity away not only for himself, but for his kids, because he wanted an $8 raise opposed to the $4 raise he received.
Never made above 22 an hour. I only got a $4 raise after a year, and people got an $8 raise making 32 plus. They sat me at 24.
What an honest-to-God joke that should leave absolutely nobody laughing. And where this reality for the children only grew darker was that only a month after moving into this devastating replacement for a home, turmoil and controversy would once more bring the resilient Jenkins into the spotlight on TikTok, all for the wrong reasons. Because in April of 2025, the Jenkins would endure their first ever custody battle involving Drew's ex, Arlita, after she had finally seen enough while actively building a case against Drew in the months prior. And with Stephanie publicly documenting to the world horrifying aspects of her children's lives that would make any rational parent's skin crawl, this was certainly going to be an uphill endeavor.
Big shout out to TehMimi there for helping us out with that chapter. Lord knows if I had to read any more lines, I'd probably take a long walk off a short bridge. Definitely make sure to go give them a follow. But with that said, let's get right back into the magic. On April 7th, a video would suddenly emerge on TikTok by Drew's ex under the account Nails by Arlita, where across the span of 10 minutes, she would thoroughly expose Drew for having been in the midst of a legal battle and how he had not only failed to make his designated appearance in court as was agreed upon by both parties, but that he had also failed to maintain paying her the child support money she was already owed, bringing forward both the documentation, the case number, and status alongside her as evidence as a means to prove that she was not crafting allegations for views and clout, as Stephanie would seem to believe.
Everybody's waiting on an update. There's not much to update. However, this was where he was supposed to appear. This is the Oregon Judicial Branch, and these were all the hearings that were being held today. So as you can see, his was today, support enforcement, and it was supposed to start at 10:15, but he had to be there at 10 physically. Had to be there at 10. I called in about 9:58 or whatever, and I can tell you that me and a couple of people were sitting in there for an hour. I even logged back in, was sitting there for an hour, so I don't believe he showed up.
The following day, Arlita posted yet another video, presenting even more damning evidence regarding the case, where she would directly read details from the legal packet that was sent to both her and Drew, which stated that he was required to be present on the specified date, only furthering Arlita's credibility that she had no intentions of playing games with either Drew or Stephanie, and she was serious about taking full custody of her son. That same day, Drew went public with a rather suspicious post that showed him in the hospital, with a caption claiming that he had suffered 2 to 3 seizures and didn't know where he was until he came to upon his arrival at the facility. However, users were not convinced that he had genuinely suffered a seizure, noting that there had never been any prior mention or instances of this occurring in the past, which would also, I'd almost guarantee, would have been documented by Stephanie in a bid to garner more sympathy from viewers. What's also interesting is over on Reddit, there was a thread posted where users who had either faced epilepsy themselves or knew people in their own lives who had faked such a condition for months in order to receive some form of personal gain, expressed that it was highly convenient that when Andrew was faced with a hearing where he may have to outright pay $3,500 towards child support that very day, he suddenly has a seizure, citing that it would not be uncommon, nor would it be surprising that Andrew had simply faked the entire medical ordeal as a means to delay the inevitable, which he is actively still doing to this day, as the custody battle continues to be delayed for one reason or another at the fault of Andrew. And if true, what makes this all that much more pathetic is the reality that Andrew wouldn't be faking epilepsy as a desperate attempt to keep his child, but instead would have only done this as a way to avoid paying money, which would mean the absolute tragic fate that he would no longer be able to just simply sit around and play video games and might have to actually go get a 9-to-5 to provide for his children. I mean, can you imagine a world where no W2 Drew's just Drew? Doesn't sound right to me either. The sheer lengths people will go to avoid getting a job is quite fascinating when you stop and just think about it. What also appeared to be a little bit of an uh-oh moment when it came to the authenticity of Drew's conveniently timed medical episode was that before Drew had actually posted his hospital photo, Stephanie had stated in a live stream of her own that Drew had actually attended court that morning and that viewers had no idea what they were talking about.
What is it? Because you guys weren't able to find your angle of him at the courthouse? You guys are like, he didn't show up? He was there. For now it's 2 missed court. And next day it's going to be 3 missed court days when we haven't even had 3 to show up for. He's been there for both court dates. I don't know what y'all talking about.
And even more interestingly enough, it appears that this live stream of hers was deleted shortly after, with Stephanie soon following suit with another live stream the following day, where she explains that she was there when Drew spoke to paramedics before he went to the hospital.
So, as you probably already know, well, some people may know, because Drew posted about it, Drew went to the hospital this morning. And this morning, when my man was interacting with the paramedics, I just often ask myself, like, would you be asking these questions if it was another... Would you be asking these questions in a different scenario? Because why are you instantly assuming that this has to do with some kind of substance abuse? Why are you instantly assuming that he's faking it? And why are you calling him old when he's 35? Not an old man yet. The medical system is failing my man. I'm seeing firsthand how African Americans get treated in the medical system. And if you want to deny that, that's probably because it doesn't affect you, okay? Or it doesn't affect someone close enough to you that you know what I'm talking about.
Well, that doesn't make sense though, now does it? Because if we refer back to the caption of Drew's post from the hospital, we see that he clearly states that he blacked out and didn't regain consciousness until he was already admitted to the hospital. And where this conspiracy gets even more peculiar is when Arlita would post another in-depth update on the situation on May 13th, where she explains that had Drew shown up to his scheduled court hearing, it would have meant that he would have been obligated to begin paying for child support that same day through a program that was meant to help him obtain a structured payment plan. That same day, Alita would post a second video to TikTok where she says that since Drew did not attend his mandatory court hearing, that there was now officially a warrant out for his arrest for his failure to appear. She then closes this final video of hers by telling Drew to give his other child from his previous relationship, Deshaun, back to Desiree, whom he is actively still in a separate custody battle with at this time. This custody battle with Desiree did actually have a bit of a twist that users were not expecting at first, as many were concerned with Desiree's parental competence as so little was known about her. But upon a further look, despite her initial petition being denied, on July 17th, 2025, there was a development where Desiree has now actually achieved partial custody of Deshaun, with her and Drew now having alternating weeks, while she still, to my knowledge, actively fights to achieve full custody in the coming months.
Drew Jenkins sat in court today in the same outfit that he's worn to the last 3 hearings that consist of his hoodie, a fanny pack, and house slippers, while Desiree sat with an army of supporters behind her that included Drew's own mother, Drew's sister Jolene and her husband, Arlita and her husband, and the advocate Rights and Rights as the judge ruled in Desiree's favor today. Not only did Desiree get the initial visits that she was awarded last month, she also got overnight alternating weekends. Plus, she will now be put on Deshaun's medical records, and she will be listed as the primary parent for the 2025-2026 school year. This is a huge win for Desiree.
Backtracking, we have frequent contradictions from both Stephanie and Drew regarding a convenient scenario where a court case was postponed that would inevitably prove detrimental to their non-existent savings during a time where the family had just lost their home and were struggling financially more than ever. All while there had, to my knowledge, never been a prior disclosure of Drew's medical history. Not that you're, required to do that. However, when it comes to the track record of Stephanie wanting to film anything that might throw her in the category of non-stop victimhood, it does seem a little peculiar that his medical issues just appeared out of thin air. It is indeed speculative, but in my personal opinion, this whole situation reeks of one attempting to play victim and avoid their legally required obligations. However, during the time between all of the turmoil regarding the two separate court cases, the already weakened structure that held up the foundation of the resilient Jenkins' household, amidst the stress and chaos that was mounting day by day for the family, a drastic direction that surprised viewers would take place when Stephanie and Andrew would, seemingly out of the blue, apparently split up with one another, sending the despised family channel into a completely unexpected breakup arc that is still actively unraveling to this day.
Oh, don't freaking cry, lady, don't. Maybe it's because I felt like it was what I needed to do to catch the man's attention. Him and I have been arguing pretty intensely for the past month, and I'm not gonna lie, that like side chick account had me in my head because I'm like, why is this talking about stuff you would literally have a conversation with me about? This is a lot on my head, a lot that I've had a really hard time opening up about, and just waited because I wanted to give our family the most chance. I wanted to really just...
At this point, he's still not worried about me getting divorced. He's still not even attempting to be like, one day we'll actually be engaged. It doesn't feel like real interest at this point.
And when it comes down to it, I have to do what's best for my kids.
I wonder if I can get the ring light to match up so it looks like I have pupils. Hello. That's awesome. I actually can't see anything. I'm now legally blind. On June 15th, 2025, Stephanie uploaded a TikTok that raised the eyebrows of avid viewers of the channel, where she is seen expressing that her and Drew were currently going through a rough patch in their relationship, but that this was no cause for concern as such instances like this were common in most healthy relationships. On text written on the screen, she also prefaces that Drew has never cheated on her, stating that he was actively making efforts to work on the areas she felt he was lacking in the relationship, affirming to viewers that Drew is her one and only soulmate. Only 2 days later, on June 17th, Stephanie would host a live stream where she appeared incredibly frustrated and would discuss with viewers how Andrew had left, leaving her to wonder as to why the relationship was unable to be worked on. There were also additional moments from this live stream where Stephanie was visibly seen trying to hold back tears while telling viewers that she was unsure as to what comes next for her, stating that she was currently $2,000 behind on her car payments, and while she did have the payments on the motel room paid up until the following Friday, she more than likely would have to start her life over again. Now, this wasn't a full confirmation of what was soon to come, but it was enough for users to see through the cracks and begin to fully add their first colors to what would eventually become the entire picture.
Oh, don't freaking cry, lady, don't. I don't know what, like I said, I don't know what's next. I know my car is like nearly $2,000 behind that I gotta catch up on. I already paid up to Friday for this motel room, but that doesn't necessarily keep me here, if that makes sense. But I'm probably gonna end up just having to completely start fresh because I ain't even gonna try to be going to a storage unit and get all the stuff that's in the storage. And let's be honest, most of the stuff that was at the apartment wasn't in the best condition anyway, so a fresh start was kind of gonna be needed anyways.
The next 3 weeks, word from the resilient Jenkins as to the status of their relationship grew quiet. Nobody was fully sure what was transpiring, but behind the scenes, it appeared as if Stephanie and Drew had attempted some form of reconciliation that would prove to be short-lived regardless. On July 8th, 2025, an anonymous TikTok account named @DrewSidepiece suddenly emerged online, to which the account began posting screenshots of alleged conversations with Drew that seemingly proved that he had been cheating on Stephanie for quite some time. These alleged DMs consist of conversations where the Anon asks Drew if he thinks that she has an attractive body, to which he says he has not seen that much. The Anon questions that if she sent him not safe for work photos, if they would have the possibility of ending up in the wrong hands, more than likely referencing Stephanie, to which Drew responds that anything sent to him would have to be quickly deleted until he is able to afford a laptop. The alleged conversation then continues on with the Anon describing how she wants to put Drew's face into her chest, to which he asks, quote, Do you have melons? To which the Anon responds asking if that's a problem. Andrew then replies that this was not an issue by any means, and how such a conversation has left him bothered, so to speak. Over the next 2 weeks, these images would begin to circulate across TikTok, with many believing them straight away, while others were hesitant to pronounce the authenticity of such rumors until further evidence was provided. With such back and forth discussions being held publicly, Stephanie would inevitably catch wind, which resulted in her hosting a live stream to address these allegations being made against her husband. In this live stream, Stephanie questions as to why people were so quick to believe these leaked messages, citing it as clear rage bait intended to harm the family that users were blindly falling for. She elaborates how she is always allowed access to Drew's phone, and that the way these texts read do not sound like the way she knows Drew to talk in DMs, further defending him by informing viewers that Drew always answers when she calls, and that she is able to see his device location at all times.
My question is, why is so many people believing those messages just for what? The person won't even share their identity. It's giving rage bait. I can look through his phone. I can look through deleted stuff. He has no problem with me looking at his phone. And there's a lot of reasons why I just didn't buy into that. Me and Drew have more of a solid relationship than people give credit for. I mean, I have mentioned we have our ups and downs, but it's not just that. It's just that those messages just don't even sound like the man that I know. Like, to me, they give off this, like, someone who is intentionally trying to make him sound weak, make him sound like he has no real attention focused on this family, and he very much does.
As July came to pass and August progressed, Stephanie would continue to upload to her account per usual, displaying her normal cooking videos, vlogs, and general rants about all motherly related topics. She would also continue to praise Drew for working overtime to provide, and would also continue to refer to their family unit as consisting of 7 members. But despite no official announcement from Stephanie herself, and her account profile still displaying both her and Drew with the children, suspicions were naturally starting to brew as to what exactly was going on in the Jenkins household. On August 24th, Stephanie would all but confirm these rumors when she reposted to Facebook a post from a user who lamented the woes of being in a toxic relationship, seemingly on the verge of becoming self-aware of the situation that both her mother and concerned users had been trying to warn her of for years. In this repost, the user discusses what it means to leave someone and how it is far more complicated than just packing a bag and departing from the situation, explaining how leaving someone you truly love, even if they are abusive, takes a mental toll, as the task involves separating yourself from someone you once held and cherished as your own. The user continues on about how someone in such a situation will still smile, lie next to their partner, and do all the things they used to do, alluding to others that she is content and unaware of her situation, but how on the inside she is aware that this is all a facade that she keeps up every day for one reason or another, saying how each passing day numbs the initial charm that caused her to overlook such glaring issues, and how it takes time to build up the ability to mentally detach yourself from the person you once endearingly called your other half. A day later, on August 26th, a day that would prove to be the reckoning of their relationship, Stephanie would post to TikTok her frustration with Drew, stating that she had truly believed that Drew would be different with her than his prior past girlfriends who had been coming forward publicly in the months prior. On the same day that this was posted, Drew was seen uploading 2 TikToks to his account, one being a simple caption that reads, "Going to post today, but it looks like I'm finding somewhere to stay," with the other being a post where he also states that he was going to meet with someone to partake in recreational activities. Interestingly enough though, users were quick to notice the appearance of Stephanie in the comments of Drew's TikToks, where she could be seen claiming that Drew had blocked her number, leaving her confused as to why he would do this. What is confusing though about Stephanie's comment here is that earlier in the same day, she had gone live on her account where she called Drew out on never taking accountability in the relationship, and that because of this, she had finally reached her limit and kicked him out of the house. And on her Facebook, she would follow this live stream up with 2 additional posts where she claimed that Drew refused to work on himself and that it was her decision to leave, describing it as her choosing the kids over him.
As most of you probably already know, Drew left. And like, yeah, I was like manifesting this and like hoping that we would have like a break and a separation. And I wasn't sure how to like go about it, because every time like I brought the idea of us like taking a break, it just got bad. I asked for like counseling together, and at this point, he's still like telling me I'm the only one at fault for anything, that I'm the only one that has anything to fix. And he's like refusing to have any accountability for anything he does.
In a brief attempt of what would have been a drastically overblown series of events were for it not how short-lived it was. A day later, on August 27th, Stephanie would out of left field announce that her and Drew decided to work out their differences, and that the two had got back together, how exciting. She says that the two should have handled their issues offline rather than allowing it to boil over onto the internet, where it would naturally get picked up and result in easy content for the drama sphere of TikTok. She also makes yet another mention of the Drew's side piece account, and says that she had allowed the account and the content found on it to get into her head, because some of the text message exchanges that were posted online did in fact sound a lot like the way that Drew speaks with her personally, which is a contradiction to her prior statement regarding the account, where she disavowed its credibility, with one of the main reasonings being that the texts were allegedly not how Drew spoke.
Oh, but you guys ended up just getting right back together, so this was just rage bait at its finest. Or perhaps it's 24 hours we should have stayed off the internet, you feel me? Perhaps it's just that Drew and I should have handled our without getting online, and I'm gonna fully admit that started with me. But maybe it's because I felt like it was what I needed to do to catch the man's attention. And him and I have been arguing and dealing with some pretty intensely for the past month, and I'm not gonna lie, that side chick account had me in my head, because I'm like, why is this talking about stuff you would literally have a conversation with me about? And I'm sitting there telling him, like, why are you not concerned? Because the is so trolly. Like, they're gonna sit there and be like, it's this song you recommended, you listen to that song all the time. They sit there and be like, oh, I'm gonna go to my hotspots, my designated hotspots, and this and this. This is conversation that Drew and I have. Like, it's like having a conversation with him. So for a second there, I sat and questioned that, like, what? And I like sending the screenshots of the text message threads. His behavior was a little bit different than I was expecting. So yeah, I'm questioning it.
Despite this, pathetically enough, only a few hours later after the announcement of their reconciliation was posted, Stephanie would host a sub-only livestream where she continued to vent to viewers about how she felt that Drew had no actual real interest in maintaining the relationship, displaying to her audience that the supposed reuniting of the two was already off to an incredibly rocky start.
At this point, he's still not worried about me getting divorced. He's still not even attempting to be like, one day we'll actually be engaged. It doesn't feel like real interest at this point.
And only a few days later, after the two had gotten back together, Stephanie would allude to leaving Andrew once again in two more posts. One to TikTok on August 29th, where she vented to her audience how she found it irritating how people assume that women who stay with cheaters are okay with being treated like that, and insinuates she's preparing to leave once more. And another on August 31st, where she posted to Threads how she had discovered that Andrew had lied about having separate social media accounts that she had not been made aware of, despite Andrew having assured her that he is not one to partake in social media to begin with. As of September of 2025, and at the time of this recording, the status of Stephanie and Drew's relationship is up in the air. Both her Instagram and TikToks describe the family as still being a unit of 7. She still mentions him as out working late hours, and in her most recent TikTok on September 17th, users noted a box of protective rubbers that were left open in the bathroom, meaning they had most likely been used recently. Also, why would you just leave these perfectly in frame for viewers and on display for your own children? That is just so bizarre. But anyways, for now, whether they are on a break, broken up, or working things out behind the scenes, it is just too incredibly messy to tell at the moment. It would appear that Stephanie could very well be in denial about Drew's alleged cheating, and that she is more than willing to turn a blind eye to reality, especially given the context of her prior post regarding toxic relationships and expressing a desire to leave. However, there is the potential that this is all an elaborate meltdown intended to bring more eyes to their account in a bid to stay relevant for revenue, which would not be out of the realm of possibility due to her prior social experiment involving DV allegations against Drew that she later revealed to be false. Regardless as to what we are to make of this, I don't think there has been a single instance where these two's presence online has resulted in being straightforward and non-complicated. Simply put, what an absolutely embarrassing wreck of a duo, and an even worse excuse of parental figures. So to Stephanie, figure out your relationship. Either remove Drew from the household and begin to heal and focus on the children for once, or keep it offline so the rest of the world doesn't have to witness the day-to-day life of the dollar store Kardashians at the expense of their children's well-being and safety. Stop allowing your children to suffer due to your inability to know yourselves as adults. It's just wrong, it's self-centered, and it's disgusting, and it just takes unnecessary amount of time away from a child's life. Currently, as to the latest updates into the entry of the resilient Jenkins, their current situation is looking far worse than it was only just 1 year prior, which it stands to amaze me how such a feat is even possible. Unfortunately for the kids, the family is still, technically on paper, homeless, currently still residing in the hotel for the next several months. As according to Reddit, allegedly Stephanie has made mention that the building is set to be demolished in 2026. It would appear that Stephanie has been able to enroll herself into a program known as TASS, or Temporary Alternative Shelter Sites, which allows her to reside in the motel indefinitely, so long as one of the members of the household is actively working towards both stable employment and a permanent residence, which I'm sure Stephanie believes she is doing by continuing to post her family's turmoil to the internet for views, but it is abundantly clear that her social media presence is far from a stable source of income. Also, an idea that Stephanie conveniently seems to ignore is that if she truly believed that Drew was a capable father, then it would be more than plausible theoretically for the two of them to work alternating shifts in order to effectively maximize their time and finances. But then again, for some reason, rational solutions appear to be implausible for these two. It's just simply exhausting to watch. In a video posted from Stephanie only a few weeks ago on August 8th, 2025, she claimed that both her and Drew were actively trying to apply for various living arrangements, but how this was proving to be to no avail due to their incredibly low credit scores, prior eviction, as well as having at some point filed for bankruptcy.
Hi, my resilient besties. How y'all doing today? I want to give you guys an update on the housing and how that's going for us. And then there's always a slight chance that you're new here, and if that's the case, welcome. We're a family of 7 who's currently homeless living in a motel. And no, we are not continuing to live in this motel by choice. We are looking for housing opportunities, but we keep being denied. And I'm not on here claiming that we're being denied for nothing. We do have a bankruptcy as well as an eviction that has been dismissed on our past record, as well as both me and my hubby have pretty low credit scores that we're trying to work with and fix.
As to their most recent updates regarding their ongoing custody battles, on September 15th, a user on Facebook sarcastically commented under one of Stephanie's posts that today was intended to be a big day in court for Drew, to which she replied in a similar fashion, stating that the two had waited around for 2 hours to have a 30-second conversation with a judge, insinuating that things were not continuing to fare well for either of the two legally. And according to posts from Stephanie on her Facebook and from users on TikTok who actively follow her every move, as of the last month, CPS has made multiple visits to their motel room, which has angered Stephanie, who believes she has nothing to hide regarding her parenting or living conditions. What is also of interest to note is that there are claims that Stephanie has 2 open CPS cases against her, with others alleging that CPS has had an unbelievable number of 8,000 accumulative calls made in recent months against Stephanie. But there is no way to possibly verify such an egregious rumor. However, I do not believe that this number is non-existent, and I by no means believe that it is a small amount either. As of now, the direction of the resilient Jenkins' saga is still up in the air, with users left to wonder how their lives will exactly pan out as the days and months progress. With Stephanie still unemployed, now potentially on the verge of raising her children by herself, depending on if her and Drew can reconcile, it leaves the outcome of their fate unknown, with their story still very far away from reaching a definitive conclusion. Perhaps there is the possibility that Stephanie's decision to live in abstract denial of her ever-crumbling reality will eventually take its toll, and leave her with no other choice than to hit rock bottom, whatever that could even possibly look like, before she is able to face the genuine depravity of her situation, and finally, make the decision to rescue the kids she vowed to protect when bringing them into this world. Though by no means, I am not holding out hope for this outcome. However, one can remain optimistic that redemption is perhaps possible, because the outcome of her continuing down this path is grim to say the least. With her children only growing older by the day, they will eventually realize what their mother has put them through, how their lives have been so grotesquely documented day after day for years, and eventually they will stumble across the countless videos and forums discussing their mother and father. I'd imagine such an outcome would leave anyone torn between wanting to have love for one's parents, while also feeling equally, as if not more, rightfully, the strong desire to distance yourself from such a toxic environment in order to take back the life that was intentionally stolen from you at such an early age. The life that Stephanie is leading, whether she knows it or not, is a lonely one in the long term. So, at the end of the day, all we can really do is watch from the sidelines and hope for the best possible scenario for Stephanie's children, while letting her story act as yet another unfortunate footnote and the abhorrent tragedy that arises time and time again from family channels in pursuit of fame, recognition, and wealth. Look at us, circling all the way back. If you're still here, I want to take a moment to genuinely say thank you for making it all the way through to the end of today's video. You being here and making it all the way through to the end really does actually help me out a lot. Maybe you're taking a fancy to me. And I feel so bad because all I have to offer in return is you either feeling rather upset that such parents exist, or perhaps I may have opened up some generational wounds for you. My apologies. But I hope I was able to lighten the mood where I could nonetheless. If you enjoyed today's video, it would really mean a lot to me if you consider dropping a like and subscribe down below with a comment sharing your thoughts, as it helps me immensely grow as a channel and quite frankly just feels really cool and supportive. Thanks for that in advance if you do decide you want to stick around. If you'd like to follow me on other platforms after the video to help further boost my ego, feel free to follow me in the links in the description to my Instagram, which is the easiest place to reach me, as these are all great ways to reach out and connect if you're feeling like you just want to say hey, or to send me whatever strange images come to mind, much like this one. Not exactly sure what I'd do with this, but the power of free will is quite amazing, isn't it? Once again, if you'd like to help support me and what we do here on the channel, feel free to consider checking out my Patreon, which can also be found down below in the description, where you can gain access to my Patreon-only Discord server, or becoming a channel member. It is a super helpful way to support the channel in between uploads, as these do take quite a bit of time to make. Every member truly does help keep the production flowing, but this isn't required by any means. There will be a dedicated section to those kind individuals here in just a moment. Ooh-wee, I must say, it has been quite the journey. We laughed, we cried, or maybe I did that, you didn't, I don't know. We learned about Stephanie's fascinating techniques in the wonderful world of that oxymoronic Portland, Oregon Southern parenting, whatever that's supposed to mean. Then I'm sure we probably just disconnected from the situation entirely due to how deplorable everything was. However, you and I did it here together. So proud of you. Once more, my name is Wonder, and it was super cool to have you here today. I've got some more deep dives of our deplorable internet people to go make for you. So until next time, be safe, take care of yourself, make sure to don't burn yourself out with whatever life's throwing your way. Thank you for all of the continued love and support to the channel, and I hope I'll catch you in the next one very soon. Farewell, my friend. If you're still here, I'd like to take a moment to express my gratitude to my kind-hearted supporters over on Patreon. I truly am forever grateful for your generosity. I know times are rather tough for a lot of people right now, so for you to support me in such a way with everything going on in the lives of your own, I really can't find proper words other than thank you. I'd also like to give another warm thank you to the high-tier community members such as Zednu, Guillotine Goblin Peasant, Ellis Hurd, and Goth Barbie 3000, and an extra special thank you to Carson, Hatter, Jay, and Alice Beth for their highest tier subscription support. You all have my expressive gratitude. Thank you. Be well, stay safe, and good night.